can't. Can you hear me? Christine, can you hear me? Christine, can you hear me? I'm off mute. You can't hear me? Okay. That's perfect. I'll be here. No worries.
Thursday, March 19th. Welcome to the Governing Board regular meeting. I'm Christine Novello. I'm today's chairperson and I'm the president of the Governing Board. I call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. I hope you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and rise if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Thank you so much. And once again, welcome. This is the Governing Board regular meeting for Thursday, March 19th. We have a full quorum today. You see before you 8 of the 9 Governing Board directors. We have Director Jolene Piaskowski, who's joined us remotely on Zoom. Good morning, Director Piaskowski.
Thank you.
We do have full quorum. I'll read our meeting procedures now. The Governing Board and its committees conduct all their meetings in compliance with Arizona Planned Community Association open meeting laws per ARS 33-1804 and in concert with RCSCW bylaws, policies, and standing rules. Parliamentary procedures, as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order, will also be followed in all meetings as appropriate, consistent with Bylaw 3.07, Procedures for Owner-Member Meetings, and Standing Rules number 2 and number 3. So thank you all. When we look at the minutes from, I hope you've looked at the minutes of February 19th, our last regular meeting. And seeing those minutes, does anyone have any corrections or objections? So seeing no objections, we will file those meeting minutes as approved. We'll move on now to the report section, topic number 3.01. We're all very excited, all of us on the board and our residents are excited about our master plan and the master plan progress. At each of our regular meetings, we usually get a progress update from our in-house project lead, who is Sabrina Alivado. But this month, we're also joined by the Barry Dunn practice lead and project manager, Mr. Jason Genk. So I welcome them both to the microphone so that we can hear from them and get an update. Again, welcome, Jason.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be back again visiting with you. Again, Jason Genk with Barry Dunn, and I'm so delighted to continue to serve as your project manager. So today, I just want to give you a brief update to how the planning process has been coming along, as well as what to look forward to. And there's a lot to look forward to in the very, very near future. For starters, I just want to acknowledge the great work that your community has done. You'll see on one of the future slides an example that within the first 2 weeks, for just one area of measure, you had over 13,000 visits to the community engagement site. Folks, I've never seen that in my years of planning or service, and I've been in public service now 33 years. Now, and you'll see again on the next slide, over 16,000 engagements on that site alone. But your hospitality, your voices, your opinions, and there's been many different members of Barry Dunn on the site, not just me. You probably, hopefully you've met some of them, have all just reported such a positive process for just making sure we're maximizing your value of getting everything you want out of the planning process, and that as many voices as possible are heard. Same with the board and the project staff team. I have to recognize the openness, the accessibility to the staff is, again, unlike I've ever seen. I don't know how Sabrina ever takes time off, because I always get pinged in questions just to make sure, again, we're maximizing the value for your community. Excellent collaboration and such thoughtful care. And we just, again, all of that goes into an outstanding outcome, an outstanding planning process. So thank you. Just a reminder, what is the master plan and why now? Probably one of the most key things to mention is that, folks, this is a 10-year vision. So sometimes people may lose sight of that, like, geez, so much is happening at once. And I get that, but I will say that, just getting positioned around your future, trying to get everyone on the same page and understanding and positioning for resources. I am aware that your team is already planning through the budget process, as an example, for potential implementation of plan outcomes. That being said, not even having all the final plan outcomes. And I got to tell you, that's also unheard of as far as the best practice. Kudos to you and your board and your team for positioning things like potential needs for plan implementation. But we're talking about a long-term vision. We're talking about future needs and interests, vision, and a unified vision and direction, just to make sure we're all on the same page and maximizing, again, the value and the benefits of the Sun City West community. Just a quick schedule overview. We still have a ways to go. So I want to be clear, we have more steps to go through the process. And here in a minute, I'm going to bring up another slide that your team put together that talks about very specific upcoming dates. But generally speaking, where we're at today is more or less through a midpoint process. And so the ability for me to talk about how the plan's going and where it's headed, certainly I can do that. In April, as you'll see in a future slide, there'll be quite a bit of presentations related to initial findings and preliminary findings. But it kind of gives you an idea of the overall process wrapping up in about September from the overall planning process. So what has happened so far? And folks, there is so many more highlights. I almost feel guilty having to pick these because I want to recognize everyone's hard work, but you're actually over 16,000 online engagements for the planning site, which is something that, again, we have never seen at Barry Dunn. Engagements throughout the community. You may have heard about clubs that we're visiting and sites that we're visiting, and good. because we're trying to get as many voices as possible. And to be clear, engagement continues to about April 3rd-ish, and there's some things we'll talk about here in a minute about that. So if you feel that a club or an organization or individuals have been missed, now is the time to encourage them to get involved, because we are still actively taking input and gathering data. But again, it gives you an idea of what really has been kind of going on behind the scenes, frankly, a lot. And there's a lot more to come. But some upcoming milestones. April 3rd, the general engagement closes. Granted, there still may be some surveys out there from the Statistically Valid survey, from other processes, a golf survey, a couple other things, but it closes on April 3rd. So please, if you're waiting to visit the site, or your friends are waiting to visit the site, or go to a virtual session, or go to a session, please don't wait much longer, because we've been working hard, but April 3rd, the site will close. Preliminary findings, and we'll give you the specific date here in a second, but I'll come back with preliminary findings of what we've learned in late April. Visioning with the planning process. What that means is, hey, we learned all this stuff, all this data that you didn't necessarily have all of it before. What do we want to do with it? How do we want to shape our vision for the next 10 years? And then moving into plan development in August and September. So those are some key milestones. There's other stuff going on, service deliverables and whatnot, but those are some key things that I thought you might be interested in knowing. So what is important right now? What's important right now is that we complete the planning efforts, and we're getting there. But again, to be clear, we have more steps along the way. Preparing for your future. You know, I mentioned this a little bit about the budget process. How thoughtful folks have been. Most organizations just don't really have the ability, for various reasons, to position in that manner, and meaning proactively. But again, kudos to you for taking those initial steps. So it's about preparing for your future, and again, emphasizing you are well on your way, more than I've seen typically from a planning process. And of course, stay engaged. We're going to have opportunities for questions and discussion right after this. But you're going to see here a number of upcoming engagement opportunities. So if there's things you have on your mind and want to share, please make sure we learn that. And I just finally wanted to give you a sample of what are some things you might expect. These are not Sun City West deliverables. These are not your reports. I want to be real clear about that. You might see some things and you're like, Jason, we didn't even have a city park. We don't have it. Of course you don't. This is really about other clients, and we're showing examples. So one of the things you'll have specific to capital, meaning how you're investing into your infrastructure and other resources into the future. We'll have a plan in place with recommendations of short, middle, and long term, as an example of blended with the community's values and community's input to best position you for success. So that kind of gives you just a quick example, and I have one more. Also making sure everyone understands the target, and what you're seeing here also is quite a bit of flexibility. This process is going to yield a number of recommendations, yet one of the things that we work hard at is providing flexibility. So you're not, forced into one direction at one given time. You have choices to make to maximize your budget resources. And I did want to share, I took just an update here just a minute ago. You may be aware that the Statistically Valid survey, which is another component of engagement, is out. And as of today, we are at 236 surveys. Again, that is unprecedented from the standpoint of turnaround time. That survey just hit the street recently from our partner at ETC, who that's all they do is Statistically Valid surveys. And that's just another element of how we're making sure we hear all diverse voices from the community. With that, I'd love to take some questions and hopefully provide some good answers.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. So I turn it to you, directors. Who'd like to start with any questions? After last week, I think we're stunned into silence. Any questions?
You're doing that, if you don't mind, just to see, there we go. I was going to suggest if you could just load this on the board.
Thank you.
Just to make sure everyone sees. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
That's okay.
I mentioned a few times to be clear about the upcoming engagement dates, and now you have them on the board as well. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all, Jason. I was about to ask Director Piaskowski if she had any questions as well.
Of course I do. Okay, Jason, in your presentation, you said that we are statistically valid. What does that mean exactly? Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. So, one of the engagement tools, one of the ways we create more community conversations is through a Siskiyou Valley survey. We partner with a firm on many of our projects called ETC, and all they do is statistically valid research throughout the country. And so, what this will do for Sun City West is that we had tasked them to represent the demographics, locations, whatnot, to make sure we're best representing the makeup of your community, and then mapping that into statistically valid findings, meaning while we love and appreciate all the ways we're having conversations, a statistically valid survey links that directly to a survey input. That means that we can track all voices that have been heard and selected through the process. Another way of having an outcome to look at findings. And we call it a gold standard, meaning that, we typically have within 5% margin of error of findings, by the way, from that survey. But to be clear, we, of course, use that survey and we look at all the other ways that we're engaging the community to try to come up with the best findings.
Thanks, Jason. Just before we go back to Director Piaskowski, to ensure that everyone understands, give us a few other guidelines that would help us understand what a statistically valid component of our population, if you will, of members would comprise. You had mentioned demographics, locations, and so forth. So is there a particular number you're striving to hit when you're, I'm not saying you particularly, but give us a little bit more color on that, please.
Sure.
So we understand.
I think the minimum target I believe we're trying to hit is 300 surveys for our number. But that being said, we do anticipate, just because of the turnaround time that your community has provided, which has been absolutely stellar, to get more than that. So we will anticipate receiving more than 300. I think I just reported a minute ago, well over 200 already, and they're coming in, daily and often. And so what the ETC does is that before they put together a mailing, they look at the overall makeup of a community, and they have a whole lot of metrics that they use to do that. And these are at a random way sent to households in your community. You may have heard, has anyone in the room, I'm just curious, by show of hands, had one sent to their home? Okay, yeah, so some folks have. And by the way, that link to also participate in the survey in a manner that's non-Siskiyou valid is there for that opportunity. But so ETC uses a process to ensure that their a survey is linked directly to one input user. So you don't necessarily have a situation where that one single survey was used, multiple times by a same household.
And we also have, although some residents received the surveys, as you mentioned, directly mailed or emailed, there's also a link from the masterplan.suncitywest.com site. Am I correct?
That's why I love you guys constantly promoting the engagement. Yes, so anyone can participate in the survey. And you might wonder, well, how is that possible? Because then it's not Siskiyou Valley. There's a way that ETC tracks that to give everyone the opportunity to participate, yet make sure they're hitting their Siskiyou Valley information. So we do not report out names. I want to be real clear about that, or addresses. We do not report out on that, just to make absolutely clear that doesn't happen. Instead, we talk about, does the response, the demographics of the users that of the input people participate in the survey represent Sun City West, or does it not? We make sure ETC does in fact represent the makeup of your community.
Thank you. Director Piaskowski, I don't know if I jumped in with a couple of my own follow-ups, but did that answer your original question, and do you have more? You may be on mute, Jolene.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's hard.
Okay. So you said we had 236 surveys sent back. Is that web or is that by mail?
Yeah, that's, let me see here. 236 surveys have been completed as of last night. So folks are sent a an invitation to participate in the survey, typically online with a code that they utilize that is linked directly to that particular survey. So that would be completed online. People do have the option of having the mailed survey as well with a pre-stamped envelope sent back to ETC to enter that in as well.
So have we received any mailbacks yet? I'm just wondering, because you said that we sent out 2,000, correct? In mail?
No, I don't know if we sent out 2,000. I didn't mean to say that. What I do know is that we're shooting for a response of 300, but we usually send way more than that just because we know not everyone responds. And as far as how many were received by mail, I don't know, but I can find out and report back to you.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Oh, I can share with you this. The ETC on their on the welcome letter that came with the survey has a phone number to call, and I know there was at least a handful of people that called just to ask questions about the survey process, and that's I love that about ETC. That's another example of good customer service, so they can explain to the caller kind of what the process is, and want to report back that all of the discussions have been outstanding. One funny one was that ETC is based in Olathe, am I pronouncing it right, Kansas? In fact, one of the callers has a background in that area, so it was funny. So,
What are the odds?
it's like this process with Sun City West has just been absolutely remarkable. Things like that are happening, yeah.
Great. Anything else, Director Pyskowski?
No, we'll see if anyone else has questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Directors, any other questions? Director Schlemmer?
Thank you. Jason, thank you for the report and for the update. And you mentioned the really terrific feedback, the really terrific engagement you've received. Are there any areas as you look now where you do have additional questions or areas where you think you need to fill in some gaps of information? And if so, what is the plan to tackle those?
Great question. And Sabrina and I met on that before me coming on site for this session today. And we talked about adding some more pop-up and opportunity sessions, but our team and our crossover teams of our other contractors like Golf and ETC, we got together and reviewed, and we feel the engagement right now is very well representing Sun City West. I'd say at a level, at a prime level. That, however, we did agree that just in case we were missing anything, we really wanted to plug these dates here for those opportunities. So now would be the time, and I'd really love, again, the board and staff and everyone that's here and online to please reach out to your friends and your network in Sun City West and ask them to be involved in these opportunities.
I do have one follow-up.
Please.
My second follow-up on that is, I noticed in the upcoming events and schedules, you have a session targeting the not over 55 generation, basically our kids. Help me out a little bit on the strategy for how are you going to figure out who that audience is? How are you going to make sure that we're getting an appropriate spread of representation to make those responses valuable insight to us as we think about the future of this community?
Yeah, that is a good example of the Thursday, April 2nd, the under 55 engagement sessions for virtual members, family attending that session. And that's an example of us meeting with Sabrina and the team and reviewing feedback. And again, just making sure what are we missing? And that came up and said, hold on. We have these other voices that may not be represented, and it's something to be, thoughtful of. So we added that. And how are we getting the word out there? As best as possible through the ongoing engagement efforts. But here again, if we could use a lot of help. I mean, I always say, we'll never know your community better than you will. So we always lean on your networks to help get that word out. And if we feel like that was not adequate in representation after April 3rd, we'll have other methods, and we pivot, and we do that at Barry Dunn, meaning that if our intent and our desired outcomes and what we're trying to do doesn't meet the goal, then we shift and say, let's think about this in a different way. And the good news is we will have some time. The preliminary findings won't be shared until the 27th, 28th.
Thank you.
I actually think this is really fascinating. We have at least two directors on the board who are second or third generation. So meaning the second or third generation that's come to Sun City West from, learning about it from their parents or grandparents. So I know Director Becknell, Director Piaskowski, among others, and we have lots of residents who do that. So I think that was a fascinating idea. Anything else? Director Grom?
Thank you very much. Just to better define, you said we're upwards of 16,000 engagements. If I go simply to your planning page and open that, is that considered an engagement? Is that considered an engagement? And then, if it's not, I have to then go to one of the categories, such the ideas wall. So every time I open that is considered an engagement, whether or not I actually add anything or not, because as you know, as people post things, what becomes critical is to see the number of people that actually comment on a posting. And then lastly, how will you be reporting to us the number of comments that absolutely have nothing to do with us, such as the menu at Cortobello? I mean, that doesn't really concern me. It'll be interesting to see, of all these engagements, how many of them are not appropriate. So am I tainting the data because I'm clicking on the idea wall 10 times a day? So let's see, in 2 months, that's about 600 times I've looked at that site. So that's a significant number of 16,000.
Yeah, well, one, that would be awesome if you or others were that interested to continue to go to the site that amount of times and to continue to see, what comments are happening and those sort of things. But to answer your question, we look at all of we call them widgets, meaning the budget tool, the survey tool, the idea board, the mapping tool. We have the ability of counting all of that. We have the ability of commenting, was a comment made or not? We do not link that back to anyone. I, again, want to emphasize that. But we do know, in fact, if a comment was added or was not. We also know, for instance, people can interact with comments. They can, raise it or lower it as far as the thumb up, thumb down, like it if you want to call it that. We have the ability to track all that. So we will report all that out in our final engagement findings. We'll also report out all the locations we have been for our engagement pop-ups, the clubs we visited, all the things we've done, even beyond the site. The site is really important, don't get me wrong, because it can be accessed 24 hours a day. Because I'm sure everyone, Sabrina, you're visiting at 4 in the morning, right, to make sure that thing, I'm just kidding. But it can be accessed 24, but also really important is the boots on the ground, getting out into the community. The other question was about irrelevant, I think you said, sorry if I misphrased, I didn't mean to, but yeah, all the data is yours. So all the data will be provided to you at the end of the planning process. Our job is to analyze all the data, whether it's the engagement, facility assessments, think tanks, benchmarks, and so many other things, the board tours, so many other things you guys have done to determine what are the most common themes, what are the very best priorities. But of course, then we still take that to visioning to make sure, hey, this is what we learned. Did we get it right? What do you think? So we will, in fact, report that, but we also won't burden you with hundreds and hundreds of page information that may or may not be relevant to the planning process.
So we'll have all the raw data, like everything that you've collected,
Yeah.
And have an opportunity to view that, but it won't be something that we bake in, is what I'm hearing. Did I hear you correctly?
Yep.
And an engagement isn't necessarily a view on the website, right?
Or views too, but we're interested in views because we have that benchmarked against other planning processes, right? So we know what that means in that context. But we're also very interested of how many times a comment's been added or viewed or liked, just to see what has been the interaction on a particular topic.
Director Grom, follow? Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I have one more question.
Please go ahead, Director Piaskowski.
I'm sorry. Okay, so this is the first I've heard that did you say that you had a survey for the golfers?
Survey for the golfers, yes, is coming out. National Golf Foundation is one of our partners, and they're developing a golf-specific survey, yes.
Okay, I didn't realize it. I thought it was already out. And how will we put that, are we gonna just put that out through our golfers, through our golf clubs? How, do you know how you're gonna put
Yeah,
that
so
out?
what we want to do is to maximize the return rate, and we don't want people thinking it's like junk email, frankly. And I know that initially happened with the ETC survey, but we resolved that, I think, within a day or two, working with Sabrina to make sure that people knew it wasn't junk mail. And by the return rate, we know that's not an issue. But for golf, same thing. We could have sent it through National Golf Foundation or Barry Dunn. We wanted to send it through Sun City West in the golf database because we believe that there's more likely that customers, clients, members will have the ability to understand, oh, this is something I'm used to getting. This is like an e-news or something, an awareness I'm getting from golf, so I'm comfortable opening this. Then I'll take them to a survey opportunity. So that is the primary way that that's being sent out. It's yet another way, again, of trying to get, you have a number of golf courses and a lot of money invested in golf and a lot of users as well. We want to make sure that every club, every area, every focus area has an opportunity to provide input.
Okay, thank you. One more question, and then I'll be done. Okay, so the 55 and under people, am I correct? Like, so you're trying to see what my children would like if they moved here, correct? Right. And so, again, walk me through how you're going to reach out to those people.
So this is the first one is a virtual members family session. We don't really know per se how much interest there is to say, hey, I want to have a voice for my children, or a 50 to under 55 generation. We don't know for sure, but we do want to provide that opportunity. So we're marketing it and creating that awareness through the standard process we've used through the planning, online opportunities, you name it today, right now, and we hope that helps to encourage people to attend, and we'll evaluate to see if we think that was successful or not.
And remind me of that date again?
It's April 2nd.
So, am I coming? I guess I just don't, I need to know. I guess I'm not understanding it. Am I coming, or is my daughters don't live here? So how are they going to be able to come and see what's going on? Will they be able to zoom in, or?
Sure. Members with, it's also marketed as members with family members that are under 55 to kind of help in that context. And so part of that, I think, is linked to, I think was mentioned earlier, generations of people moving here, but it's also about within the same family, but it's also about trying to get to that additional demographic of potential users, potential members. So to be clear, yeah, if you are in a situation, or if anyone in a situation, and you have family members under the age of 55, we'd love for you to attend that session.
And the attendance, Jolie, Director Piaskowski, as I understand it, is virtual, so they will Zoom in, whether they're here in Arizona or located at a distance, as some of our, and Jason, if I heard you correctly, it could be, it doesn't necessarily have to be family, it could just be folks that we can recruit. Correct?
Which is great.
That's a tough one,
Yeah.
but I think getting our families would be fascinating too, so.
And can I just ask, is that going to be an e-news? How are we going to communicate that to our residents? Does anyone know? Because the April 2nd is like right around the corner.
So, yeah, Jolene, Sabrina is giving some input on that in the room, so hold on, Jason will read it out.
Thank you.
News and on the website, yes.
So let's pass that information along. That's an interesting opportunity. And any other questions from our directors? Anything from our in-room residents or participants? Anything online, Director Forsey? Nothing. Great. Well, Jason, we are very excited, as you can tell. I'm wondering, off the top of your head, we have these 16,000, wow, 16,000 engagements that you were mentioning. For a community of 27,000 or so, what would be a typical response, if you will, from?
Yeah, the 16,000.
So we know how awesome we are.
Yeah, the 16,000 engagements only specific to the online portion of engagement, because you're going to have a lot more to be proud of, I think, in the engagements. But yeah, geez, I'm going to say 4 times the amount of typical use of the online tool. Okay. And that depends on the demographic in the area. But yeah, I'd say 4 times more successful than the average.
Interesting.
It's kind of record setting. You guys are pretty cool. I'm just saying.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's not the first record we've set. Thank you. And so it looks like we're You've answered all our questions. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you. We have
Can't
some
wait to be
stuff
back.
coming up in April with you, I know. So thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.
I meant to ask, Stephen, anything that you wanted to add from your team? I apologize.
Yeah, listen, just the fact that, to Jason's point and your point as well, that, the amount of engagement is just unheard of. I mean, I've done many of these in my past career in local government, and it's always a challenge to get folks to engage. And I'm not surprised terribly, but maybe a little bit at the level, but I am pleased, of course. But I knew how our community is we're very engaging, and so it's great to hear that. And I just want to shout out to Sabrina as well. She's been doing a fantastic job with this, as Jason mentioned. She's very much been driving this on the staff end. And Jason, you and your team have done a phenomenal job, and I just appreciate everything. And I'm really excited for where we're at with this and the amount of engagement we've gotten. So kudos to all of you. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen. And it may not always be obvious to those of you who are not on the board, but Sabrina puts together a weekly summary for us so that we're keeping up with all the great stuff that's going on. So again, kudos, Stephen, to you, Sabrina, and the whole team. Thanks again, Jason. Really appreciate it. Moving on to 3.02, our CFO, Cliff Swan, is going to give us a quick financial review. The details were presented, of course, at Budget and Finance, but this is important to us. So, Cliff, one of many times you'll be up at the dais, but thank you.
Good morning, Governing Board. Good morning, community. Going to go through the February year-to-date financial performance of the association. Again, we just kind of hit the operations side of the financial statement. We talk about compared to prior year, compared to budget, and then move into the capital section, talk about things like the reserve fund performance and APFs down there, and then move on to the basically the reserve side of things and talk about the capital improvement budget and how we're working out there, and then finally where we're tracking for the year and our fully funded balance percentage. So taking a look at the monthly financial February compared to budget, right on budget. Who put that budget together? Oh.
The governing board did.
Yes,
With your help.
that's right. So anyway, we look at on the expense side, some favorable savings there, 67,000 overall, but on 2.3 million, pretty much right on budget. Overall, 68,000 favorable for the month of February. And compared to prior year, pretty much right on with prior year, 8,000 favorable. Moving year to date, tracking pretty well, right on budget. 19.8 million budget, 72,000 favorable. Had a little bit of struggle in golf, and we made up some ground in golf in the month of February. And March is pretty much tracking. It's a little behind, but we'll see how March shakes out. But Sports Pavilion, you can tell there with the favorable 102,000 is really kicking it in the butt this year. But overall, 72,000, right on budget. Taking a look at the expense structure, had some pretty favorable savings in wages and benefits the first half of the year. Experienced some turnover in certain areas and mainly in our golf maintenance and landscape area, which we continue to have turnover there. But as you can see with the February results, pretty much right on budget with wages, benefits, and taxes. On the utility side, we'll see what happens with that as we complete the year. It's been a little warm. I don't know if you've noticed in the month of March, so chances are we're probably going to exceed budget on the utility side for the month of March, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And then from a landscape maintenance perspective, and I just met with Todd and Dan in the landscape maintenance area. Those chemicals and fertilizers are coming. We could be impacted by this Iran thing with the Strait of Hormuz, and some impacts to some of our fertilizers and chemicals could be impacted by that. So we do anticipate most of that savings to be spent just from a timing perspective, and then also probably impacted in terms of what's going on in that conflict currently. But we'll keep an eye on that. We do have 80,000 overall savings in seed and we've purchased all of our seed at the golf courses. So if we do have some negative impacts because of what's going on, we can offset that with some of those seed savings. So, but we do anticipate that large favorability coming back in the landscape maintenance area. And then repairs and maintenance, we'll see what happens, and along with all these other items. So taking a look at the overall operating, we're 1.2 ahead. We entered the black in terms of cash inflow after February. So we're positive, and we'll continue to carry that in April and May, and then we'll see what happens in June. Compared to prior year, about $500,000 ahead. Again, that's mainly because of the timing on those fertilizers and chemicals purchases on the golf courses. We were able to do a pre-purchase last year, which unfortunately they weren't available this year to do that. So we'll see that come back. Again, overall, $402,000 on wages and benefits compared to prior year budgeted, all budgeted for, of course. And then from the landscape maintenance perspective, those chemicals and fertilizers we talked about. Now, moving into the capital section of the income statement, $353,000 favorable. We had unrealized gain and investment income, about $419,000 in February. Last month, Mr. Chatton asked about what the makeup of that was in terms of our fixed and equities, how they performed. And I would say that about 68% of that came from the fixed portion of our investments. And the remainder, 32%, came from our equities section, most of which in the international equities. Domestic equities are about flat for the month of February. So looking at compared to prior year, we performed a little bit better prior year, but in the investment section, but overall year to date, we're ahead of prior year, significantly ahead through February. From an APF perspective, right on budget last month and favorable to prior year on APF fees. Now, looking year to date, we're running a little behind budget on APF fees. We're about 20 APF transactions through February behind what we budgeted. March is looking favorable right now, so we'll keep an eye on that. The market seems to be picking up and doing well, according to what Riley's telling me and what's going on in the membership department. So we'll continue, I think, to make up that difference if things hold the way that they're tracking right now. On the investment side, through the first half of the year, through the first 7 months of the year, 8 months of the year, we're doing pretty well there. But $2 million ahead of budget, which isn't surprising because we don't budget unrealized gains and losses. So when we have a favorability there, we're going to go significantly ahead because we don't budget for those. But compared to prior year, $1.2 million ahead. Again, if you look at the reserve fund valuation change, we're tracking about $947,000 favorable to prior year in that in our reserve fund. So pretty good. I don't want to talk about through the first 19 days of March right now because of what's going on. But we'll just continue to track that throughout the year and see how we do. But again, I talked about it earlier, 20 ahead of behind budget on APF transactions, 31 behind compared to prior year. Now, overall, revenue over under, we're $3.2 million ahead of budget and $1.761 ahead of prior year. Now we're going to switch to kind of the reserve fund side of things, the capital improvement side of our budget. And last year, the governing board approved $5,148,000 in the capital improvement budget. And right now, with what's been completed and what's been projected and PO'd out, we are anticipating an approximate $260,000 savings in our capital improvement budget. And the detail of those projects are here on this sheet. The highlighted items are complete. The highlighted green items are favorably completed, and the highlighted blue items are unfavorably completed, meaning we went a little over budget. But the detail of those are listed here, and if you have any questions on those, we can answer them. And then we've got a year-to-date capital summary of the items, the capital projects that are over 100,000, and those are detailed here. Not many changes from last month, but most of these projects, except for that's not on this, but most of the projects are in process or completed. We do have a painting project at Palm Ridge that still hasn't been started, that will get cracking on at some point. I'm not sure when they plan on starting that, but that's yet to be done. But all of these are underway, and then if you have any questions on those, you can answer those as well. Year to date from the allowances, we have approximately 240,000 of the 420 allocated for those items. We had the well pump that we talked about and did a facts and findings on last month at Desert Trails. So that hit at about 109,000. We also had to move up the deck resurfacing at Beardsley. That's a reserve item that we had to move up because we needed to refinish that. We didn't quite get the useful life out of it that we thought we would, so we invested some dollars to get that done, and then that'll just get moved out on the reserve study. So, and then from in our wood shop, we have a dust collector machine in there that requires bags, has 100 bags, and 2 of the bags needed to be replaced. And for that type of machine, it makes sense to do all those at once. And they were on the reserve study for next year, but we had to move that item up to this year. So we invested in that and gotten that taken care of. All right, now it's all about the fully funded balance. It's all about the reserve fund, and therefore, how do we know how we're doing in our reserve fund? Right now, we're tracking. We had budgeted to be finished this year at 47%. On the budget, if you go to the modeling sheet, you'll see that we anticipate being at 48%. So we're well on our way and looking good on our fully funded balance percentage. And so that completes the February year-to-date financial presentation. Answer any questions.
Thank you, Cliff. That was done in record time. Anything, Director Becknell, as our treasurer, anything that you want to comment on or add before we open it up for questions?
Thank you. Now, the Budget and Finance Committee saw this same presentation on Tuesday, and we had a few questions that Cliff answered for us directly. We had nothing outstanding, so we're fine with the way the budget's been presented.
Thanks, Director Becknell. Any questions from the board? Director Crum.
Thank you, President Novello. Cliff, could you go back to, I guess probably in your first presentation, the February actual expenses compared to the February budgeted? Yeah.
Month of February or year-to-date?
Yeah, February year-to-date actual expenses compared to budgeted, yeah. Okay. At the bottom there, you see our actual expenses are basically 19.4 million, right? But we budgeted 20.6. So we're, as far as expenses, we're 1.2 million ahead. But you said we probably anticipate some expenses in the next 4 months above budget. Okay. That number, those two numbers at the end of June, what do you anticipate the variance will be between our actual expenses and our budgeted expenses for the whole year?
I'd have to go back to it's actually in the budget packet. We have a forecasted FY26 compared to budget. I know overall it's about $500,000 favorable revenue and expense. But I would say from the wages and benefits perspective, that'll probably be about $500,000. All the other items are really unknown.
Okay, my point being, at the end of the year, any variance that you're calling favorable, meaning our expenses were less than budgeted, we still collected basically that money from the members, true?
Now you switch to the revenue side.
Well, because
Okay.
your revenue is based upon your forecast budget of expenses, that's how we set our golf fees, that's how we set our assessments. So any money that's generated is money coming from our members.
Assuming we hit our revenue budget?
And it looks like, already it looks like we're ahead of revenue for the year, so we're actually collecting more than we budgeted.
Yeah, okay, so I'm trying to understand, what's the context of the question? I don't understand.
Okay, at the end of the year,
Yeah.
if we have what you're calling a favorable variance in expenses, that's a good thing. I mean, that's a good thing. However, because our revenue is based upon your budgeted expenses, we've collected revenue that essentially is not getting used to cover the operating budget.
I don't understand
Yes.
this. I'm sorry.
If that's the way you want to look at it, then yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you understood that because I did not, but thank you.
It's definitely, there's a favorable, we anticipate expenses. We didn't know that we would get the rain that we would get, for example. We didn't know that the temperatures were as mild as they would be. So we budgeted 253,000 more through February. So if we don't, if we don't experience that, we hold that favorability throughout the year, then yes, that would be a savings that would go into the budget. And if you wanted to look at that as I don't want to say unbudgeted, but however,
No,
whatever you
okay,
said.
Okay,
But how does that correlate? Excuse me, Director Grom, I'm sorry. But you're also projecting that we're ahead of our target on revenue. Is that part of your response, Cliff?
We're ahead through
I think
February
that was what,
Yes.
that was what Director Grom
okay,
was
yeah,
asking.
on budget with the
okay,
revenue side. Yeah.
you budget at the beginning of the year certain operating expenses. Okay, those operating expenses determine exactly the amount of assessments and golf fees that we will be collecting during the year to cover that operating budget. True?
And to fund the reserve fund, yes.
Okay.
Which is a big part that's missing in
So
that. But
the
yes.
bigger the delta at the end of the year between budgeted expenses and actual expenses is money that in theory we've saved because our expenses are lower. However, the money for revenue to cover the estimated budget is a positive number, which then goes where? Where does that money go? We've collected it from our members.
Well, we've collected it in various ways. One of the ways we've collected it is through dues. Another way we've collected it is through golf and all the other revenue streams that we have. So if we collect additional revenue or we save on the expense side, those funds go back into the reserve fund in the budget.
Okay, so
That's
at
where it
the
goes.
at the end of the year, in 4 more months, right now I'm looking at 20.6 million and I'm looking at actual of 19.4 million. In theory, if the budget were perfect, those two numbers would be zero at the end of the year, provided we collected enough revenue to cover our expenses. But I'm getting at, is the budgeted number that is used to determine our annual dues, how accurate is that number at the start of the year?
How accurate is it?
Right now, there's a delta of 1.2 million.
Well, that's on the expense side, Director Grom, you're asking how accurate are the revenue projections as well, am I correct?
Well, revenue is ahead of budget. What I'm getting at is we budgeted 20.6 million, so we collected revenue to cover 20.6 million, but our actual expenses are only 19.4. So we actually, I'll use the term, we've over budgeted expenses.
Perhaps, but the other thing, Director Grom, I just want to make sure that everyone, including you, are aware that this is not just revenue that we collect from our members. It's all, the golfing revenue is not just member driven. There are some components of our revenue streams that are not solely collected from our members. I know that you appreciate that from golf in particular, correct? We have golf and budget and bowling revenue in particular that does go beyond our owner members and residents.
Well, I understand that, but the driving factor at the start of the year, because we do a zero balance budget, correct? Whatever you budget as far as expenses then has to be covered by budgeted revenue, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that's all.
With a contribution allocation into our reserve fund, correct.
The expenses include that allocation, if you will, into the reserve.
It's built into the revenue, the budget on the revenue side because we allocate. Yes, absolutely. So we're running about 5% off a budget right now on the expense side through 8 months of the year.
Right. Director Grom, I'm going to go to Director Turner for a moment and see, and we'll come back to you if you have additional questions. Director Turner?
They're not really questions, more of an observation. The first is that a budget is in fact a forecast. And a forecast, by definition, is probably inaccurate. So it's never going to be perfect because of the factors that we get that happen. Things happen. The weather is different. The economy may change. People may struggle to pay their dues. We may have more bad debts to collect. The number of golf rounds may go down. The amount of the utility bills may go up or down. If the weather had been different, the golf revenues could be significantly affected. The utility bills could have been significantly affected because of the way we need to water. So it is, by definition, inaccurate. And I think we need to give some kudos to Cliff and the General Manager and the team for the way that this is managed in such a way that we can cope with that uncertainty.
Yeah.
So we can't find landscapers, but we do have savings because we can't find landscapers, and those savings are used for contractors. So we have a different, we have a saving somewhere in the budget, but we have an increase in expense elsewhere. There's a lot of swings and roundabouts, so
True.
That's just the point I was going to make.
Yeah, thank you, Director Turner. And my experience on the corporate side of things, anyway, is that the any corporation or board that's managing expenses to within 10% of those forecasts that are made so far in advance considers that a good outcome. And I think the forecasts have this year been extremely spot on, despite the fact that we have not only economic variances, weather variances that impact us. Geopolitical things have changed very dramatically and unexpectedly this year. Nothing that could have been predicted with certainty a year ago when the CFO put together projections and when the governing board approved budget, but all valid observations, I believe.
Try to build in some contingencies on both sides of the financial, the top and the bottom side. It's the prudent thing to do. It's a best practice to do that. We definitely, what we don't want to do is stake our modeling, stake our future on trying to dial in a budget on a shoestring. If everything hits perfectly, we're at zero in the excess overage line, and we've dialed it in perfectly. It'd be hard to build a budget. I know I joked earlier about February, but overall, we'll see how the year goes. I mean, if we hold that 1.2 million, that's great. That gets added to the reserve fund, which ultimately, and I know it's two different budgets, but ultimately, it's all about the fully funded balance, and it's all about the FFB percent in the reserve fund. So, yes, that we have things that impact the reserve fund directly, but dues also impact the reserve fund. And at the end of the day, if we can build a budget next year and hold our reserve fund at a certain percentage, that means less of an allocation or need for an allocation from dues, which ultimately results in less of a dues increase.
Director Chapman.
Thank you. I think what Rudy was trying to get at is if we're budgeting more than what's necessary or historically used, then we're collecting too much in fees. I think that's where he was getting at. And this is a philosophical discussion that we've had some of it before, but most of it comes in wages and benefits. Other businesses that I've been associated with and cities, when you have a vacancy, you hire someone. Well, here we have all kinds of vacancies and we're unable to hire anyone. So the argument would be long-term, if we're never going to be able to fill all those positions, then why budget for that full amount? On the other hand, the minute we don't budget for that full amount and we are able to hire those positions, then we're going to be in a negative position. So to me, it's a philosophical argument what we should do with wages and benefits for all those positions that historically we have been unable to fill. So I don't know that we need to budget as much as we do, but I certainly wouldn't want to see it reduced to a point where if we were able to fill those positions, we're not in good shape, especially with all the turnover we have.
Be careful when we talk about positions, because positions, 495 positions in the budget, there's turnover, and turnover is different than not being able to fill a position. So turnover means that you have positions and people turn over in them. And when you have multiple 86 golf landscape maintenance positions, you are consistently trying to fill positions in there, but it's not one position that never gets filled and stays open. It's turnover within that department that happens that creates open positions. So you're constantly trying to fill these positions. We had a long discussion. I encourage you to go to you were there at golf. If we had, instead of 86, if we had 106 positions in the budget for golf, we'd still be trying to hire 10 positions every month because of turnover, because turnover happens. So in an organization our size, we present this at the governing board GM Ops meetings monthly in our HR presentation, and we have turnover that positions that we're constantly trying to fill. But our turnover rates are significantly below industry standard at approximately 3%, which is good. That's how we measure if we're doing that. Now, it is a tough pill to swallow when you look at the budget and you go, boy, if we didn't have that additional $448,000 in that line item, maybe we wouldn't have had to generate revenue to cover that, which I appreciate and I understand, and I understand the angst there. But the mechanism to help us tolerate that is that those savings go into an overall reserve fund, which ultimately impact dues when you put a budget together in future years. So that's what that is, and we're really working hard to try and fill those positions, but we're always going to have turnover, folks, especially in positions that are very hard to fill. I believe Todd said he used to have 120 positions he used to fill in the budget. He's down to 86. He's down to 86. So we've got that thing dialed in as close as we can get it, and we do supplement in other areas. So there's some repairs and maintenance budget on overage in the repairs and maintenance line item when it comes to outsourced services. And we do supplement that, but it's only to get the bare minimum done that we need to get done. We don't supplement outside services to, for example, we would much rather have that position filled because there's a lot more that we can do with that position, and the conditions and that we could provide, the finished product that we could provide at the golf courses would be a better finished product. And that's what we're trying to budget for. That's what we're trying to budget for. We're not trying to budget for the bare minimum to get by. We're trying to budget for what our members want. And so that does create a variance. But again, the mechanism is to put that savings back in the reserve fund, and which ultimately impacts dues increases in the future.
I think part of what is challenging for many to grasp is that we see what appears to be a very consistent either percentage or number of open positions. What I'm hearing you and the staff tell us is that these openings just, it seems consistent in number, but it's not the same exact position that remains open for months on end. It's rather, we'll fill a given position and then that same, maybe within that same job grade or title or type of work, we'll have some, we'll bring in 2 people and 1 or 2 people leave. Am I interpreting that correctly?
We're making some great progress yes, exactly. We were making some great progress from the landscape maintenance side and Todd's team, and he literally had 6 people leave at once. And a lot of those were 10-plus year employees left in a 2-week period.
What's driving that? I mean, the anecdotal, you've told the golf committee and others, but if you can give the residents a little color.
Yeah, I would say that, it could be various reasons. I don't know. It could be economic reasons. It could be things that are happening in terms of the competitive nature of those positions. We had a lot of people, a lot of them just were over 50, 60 years old.
Yes.
And just decided to retire. So there's a lot of different dynamics, health, all of that. The problem is when you have those tenured positions leave, you got to fill those positions, and it's not a desirable position for young people. People want to start at the top and work their way up, right? You used to have that mantra where you start at the bottom and work your way up. So there's that. There's just a lot of different factors. And they're all different depending on what position you're trying to hire for.
Thanks, Cliff.
Yeah.
Any other questions, directors? Any questions from our residents here in-house? In the room, that is? And I don't see anything online either at this point, Director Forsey, do you?
Second opinion, no.
Just want to make sure, you know me, it's early. Thanks a lot. Seeing no questions, we'll move on then. Thank you, Cliff, for the overview and for answering our questions. These are tough concepts to grasp for all of us, so really appreciate your tenacity and clear explanations. We're going to move on now to item number 4.01. And these are unfinished business. These are 2 areas, things that we could not, even in our marathon meeting last week, we could not get to these, so we just moved them here. They should be quick. 4.01 pertains to what we're calling government relations or some pending laws. The governing board's aware we are, as I read in our meeting procedures at the start of every meeting, and all the committees do as well, we talk about Arizona revised statutes, ARS. So we're organized under what's called Title 33. We're a planned community. A planned community we're a planned community in an unincorporated area. So we're in a unique position where we rely on those laws for a lot of what we do, and we don't have a lot of government over structure, if you will. So a planned community could be anything like basically just a standard HOA can be organized in this way with 27,000+ residents and homeowners here. We far exceed the size of a typical planned community. There's no one even close to us. The laws that govern us, however, are often now being written around or for communities that are much smaller. And that's created an unfavorable environment for us as an association. So governing board got some legal input and advisory during an executive session, and we made a decision that we needed to get some help in terms of watching some of the pending legislation that's here in Arizona. So we charged Stephen with looking for some help, someone who could actually work to represent us, for lack of a better phrase. When I say us, not us as individual homeowners, but the overall association for some of the pending legislation in Capitol. So Stephen, could you give us and our residents a quick overview of where we are with this?
Yes, thank you, President Novello. So, yeah, as you mentioned, so the legislature every year introduces quite a number of bills that are related to planned communities. And as you mentioned, that can be anything from, I mean, I'm still I have a home that I'm a president of a small HOA, really small, 32 units. And that same legislation applies to that 32 units as it does to our organization, which is very, very different, of course. And the struggle is most of the time, the vast majority of planned communities are set up the same way. They have very fixed costs. They have, you know, a park or whatever they're maintaining or whatever amenities they might have. They have their budget is set up based on how to maintain those parks, insurance requirements, paying a management company, whatever all the expenses are, and they take all of that, divide it by the number of homes, and that's your dues. But and then a reserve, of course, typically as well. But it's very fixed. I mean, there's no other revenue generally that comes in other than those types of the dues that are coming in, and the costs are pretty much fixed as well. But so oftentimes what happens is there's out in other communities, there's oftentimes a lot of angst with their HOAs, and they get a hold of the legislator and they decide that they are going to introduce some bills or whatever, and those same bills then affect us, and we're subject to whatever comes out of that. So each year we hold our breath as to what's out there, and this year particularly there was quite a number of them that were quite concerning, that could have really significantly, could still even, it's looking favorable at this point, but could still impact us and how we operate, particularly from a financial end. So the governing board you all had asked to look into some way that we could have some representation, and through a lobbyist that we now have hired to your point, represent us and kind of present our interests for the association. They are monitoring those bills. They are actively engaged. The firm that there was 3 firms that I got quotes from and information from. We eventually I landed on Demena Public Affairs. They've been around since 1998. They are a family-run business, actually. The father started the company back in '98, and the sons are now partners in that, as well as they have a staff of about 10 people. The other 2 that I looked at were individuals simply representing themselves. I think they would have done a fine job, but I think this firm was really even better. They have a track record down at the legislature that they know the different players that are involved, and they are actively engaged with them as to make sure our interests are being protected. The problem is right now, like I said, the majority of the bills have actually did not make it out of committee, so there's nothing that's really hugely pressing. However, the legislature is not done until they're done. So until they sign die, they can do a strike all or strike everything, which is basically their ability to put things back into a bill. So the need for them still exists even this year, and then going forward to build the relationship and make sure that our organization is properly represented, and so that folks at the legislature understand that this issue that they think they're trying to address for this whatever 100-home community is impacting 28,000 residents and how we operate here, which is very, very different. I mean, there's really nothing else like us out there. So I think it was a prudent choice by the board to engage with this firm, and they've already, again, are actively working in our favor.
Yeah, most of the of our neighbor active adult communities are actually subject to, or they're part of an overall municipality, right? So our neighbors across Grand Avenue in the Grand are part of the city of Surprise. So they have all of those. Our neighbors in Sun City, however, removed themselves from Title 33 some period of time ago, a few years ago, as I understand. And they're now organized a bit differently. So one of the things that our community is going to look at would be the pros and cons of doing something similar. What would it take And I believe that is also what we're going to look at. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So looking at, the ability to carve ourselves out the way that Sun City did is something that we're going to be moving forward with as well. That wouldn't happen this session, and we'll take some time to build that momentum. But yeah, Sun City was prudent in that way, in the sense that they were able to remove themselves from Title 33 so that they were not subject to the future legislative changes that could be a significant impact. And to your point with other cities, so cities have a vested interest in having HOAs be successful. In fact, my past life, we would put on, or they still do, HOA academies. So the city actually would host academies to train HOAs so that they are successful, because they want them to be successful. So they do look out for those things that may negatively impact HOAs, because the cities don't want them to fail, because then they have to take over whatever is happening, whatever they're currently managing. We don't have that here. So that makes a big difference in how we look at things, because without that representation, we have nobody looking out specifically for Sun City West directly. Now, that we do have some representation through Community Association Institute, CAI, but they're representing all HOAs. So again, which we are very, very different from typical HOAs. So even their view on what might matter is very different than what matters to us. So again, I think it was very prudent, and I applaud the board for looking at this as a priority to make sure that we do protect our interests going forward.
Definitely. Now, I know one of the questions that may arise, or it certainly may arise from some of you, would be, remember that we have here in Sun City West, we have an association called PORA, right? That's Property Owners Residents Association. They are, their charter is really to look at and represent individual homeowners, not the association at a corporate level. So they haven't historically actively participated in this kind of activity that we're talking about. Now, just so that you are all aware as well, the governing board, RCSCW governing board president and vice president, and this year it's myself and Director Grom, meet with the PORA president and vice president on a quarterly basis on an official, and then we'll stay in touch on other topics as necessary. So it just happened that yesterday was our quarterly meeting together with the PORA president and vice president. So they're aware of this situation. Didn't want anyone to feel as though there's any overlap. There really isn't. They're aware of and supportive. They understand as homeowners what we've done and why we've done this. So just so you're aware. And while I'm mentioning it, although it's not directly on topic, since I mentioned those meetings next at our workshop coming up in April, the PORA board will be here to introduce themselves and to give an update to the community as well. So with that, directors, any questions or any topics that you wanted to ask about or comment on this topic before we? Residents that are here, any questions in the room? And nothing online. So, and anything, Director Piaskowski, apologies. Any questions from you? I should have asked.
No, I just want to make sure that the residents also know that we'll be updated through GM Ops and or workshop or general meeting through Stephen on what's going on with that, that we hired with the person,
Thank you. Yeah, great point. And so we'll keep communicating on that. Thanks for that insight. And with that, we'll move on to item 4.02. This is going all the way back to the fall. I believe it was in November, the governing board discussed and considered a potential end-to-end review of all of our existing policies. We have over 50 policies. I believe the current count is 53. I could be off by one because there's a bit of turnover, but it's been many, many years. We certainly don't have any recent recollection of reading those, having a professional review end-to-end, if you will, of all of these policies and an assurance that that they are accurate to reflect everything, that there's no duplications and so forth. Several of our committees, as we go through these annual reviews of policies, noted that there's inconsistency in structure. There seems to be quite a bit of duplication. And therefore, the governing board considered this and said, let's go out and get a budget price together for doing this kind of an end-to-end review. So we did put together what we called a request for quote. A proposal would imply that we're actually committing to spend the money. So similarly, we put that out to several different firms here in the Valley with the help of Stephen. We appreciate that. Received 2 bids back, or I should say quotes back, excuse me. And I'm grateful to both Director Piaskowski and Director Grom for joining me. We wanted to meet with each firm that came back with a proposal to ensure that that they understood what we were asking for, because to be honest, we thought it was going to be more expensive than what they came back with a price on. But at this point, we're satisfied after meeting with both firms that sent in a potential quote that they understood the scope of what we were looking for, that the end-to-end review would include a review of not only those policies, but also ensuring that our bylaws and policies that they align, that everything is aligned to statute, and that they would return all the policies to the governing board, reviewed, redlined, consistent, everything that we asked for. So for all of those deliverables, the prices quoted varied a little bit, but they did not exceed $30,000. So directors, I put to you the question of basically, do we want to proceed forward and actually put this money into the budget for consideration, or consider doing the work? The next step would be to reach back to the vendors that came back to us and actually ask them to come back with a full-on proposal to do the work that we would evaluate with a consistent RFP type process like we do with all of our other quotes. Any concerns with moving forward? Director Forsey.
You know, I think that these are always in a flux, and they're always going to be changed back and forth. I don't know that it would be prudent to spend that money to do what you've described on it. I think, you know, with the different clubs or the directors that have gone through and rewritten them, in many ways, we've taken care of that, but they're going to be reviewed every time they have to be changed anyway.
That's certainly accurate. The difference would be we would have the consistency to start with, and we would also, each firm that came back would take a look at the area of our bylaws that currently mandates that annual review, because that's not something that is required by statute, nor is it something that they've seen in best practices as well. So just so that you're aware. And what we would do with this, directors as well, after we have a brief review, if we feel that we want to proceed forward, we would put this into our April meeting for an actual motion and vote. So I'm not asking for a vote here, just some feedback on the next steps, whether we feel like it's worth taking the time to do that. Anyone else, any other comments? Director Schlemmer?
Thank you, President Novello. Well, I share some of the concerns that were raised by my fellow Director Forsey. I think, as you pointed out, the simple question here is, do we want to place this onto the agenda in April for a vote? And I think that's probably the right course of action to do, to open up and then have the dialogue on whether or not it is the right and appropriate next step. My concern around this entire process is, I think part and fundamental to that review is also consideration of the purpose and the philosophy behind the annual review of policies and why we do that, and the degree to which we are making substantive changes versus wordsmithing changes, because that costs this community money. And if we're simply moving a comma or changing an and to a but, that's probably not the best use of our funds. So I'd welcome the discussion. I think it should be put on the agenda. I share the concern.
Thank you. Director Becknell?
I agree with Alan. I think we spend a lot of time making very little changes and hours looking at red line copies, and I think it would be great to get the bylaws and the policies synchronized. So I think it's worth having that kind of in-depth discussion to keep us on the same page.
Director, I wanted to make sure I wasn't ignoring any hands on this side of the table. Director Turner?
Yeah, of course, the requirement to review is not the same as a requirement to modify.
This is true.
When I started attending meetings and sitting in the audience of various committees several years ago, it was, a committee might have 10 policies to look at. They would immediately come back after 1 month and say, we've looked at them, 9 of them are okay, 1 of them needs this small change. We seem to be in a situation now is where we're changing the majority of policies, not just tweaking minor ones. My main concern with our policy and bylaw situation at the moment is that we have policies that are in conflict with bylaws. We have practices that are currently underway that we do, that we're happy with and comfortable with, which are not supported by some policies and some bylaws, and therefore they need updating to reflect reality as opposed to, governing what we do. And that brings me to my final point, which is an external review would do a lot of the heavy lifting because it is a long and time-consuming job. My only concern there is that the people who will be doing that review don't have our institutional knowledge of Sun City West and what it's about and how we live and how we work and how things happen here. They won't have that knowledge, and therefore they may make some errors as a result of that.
Okay. Thank you for the comments. I'm looking for a consensus to move this to a future workshop in light of the fact that we are in the midst of budget season. This may not occur in April. We may put it into a future workshop, though, if we have consensus to at least move forward. Do we have consensus to move this forward to a full-on discussion?
Yes.
Any objections? Any objections, Director Piaskowski?
No, we're good.
Okay, so I'm going to put this on so we can have a fuller discussion, and I do appreciate all the comments that were received. And although the amount is less than we expected, any dollar that we can save is a dollar saved. So we will look at that and evaluate pros and cons, and we'll put it into a future workshop for full discussion and consider whether it's ready for vote. Thank you, directors. Move on then to new business. Oh, excuse me. Are there any comments from residents?
Sorry, just one comment. Holly McCurdy, 137726. So if you guys do decide to move forward with this, right, I want you to think about future, if you're going to continue to have committees silo policy changes, right, there needs to be somebody that looks at it holistically. You can't say, I'm going to go spend $300,000, $30,000, and then not look at it holistically every year to keep it up to date.
Or at least periodically. Thank you very much for that comment. And we'll consider that. And again, we'll make sure you're aware of when we're having this discussion so that you can reiterate your comments and any others that may come up. Any other, I don't see anything online. Any other comments? Then we'll move on to new business at that point. So directors, we're going to move on and look at, speaking of policy reviews, we're going to look at 2 groups of policy reviews that have had legal review now. I need to remind you, however, before we go into, we're at 5.01, where we're talking about our financial policies that were proposed for revisions through our Budget and Finance Committee. So before we move forward with motions, I want to remind the directors that we reviewed everything in depth, had extensive comments and feedback. Everything was considered, and we approved moving these to legal review in November of 2025. So again, we moved these to legal review. We also said at the same time we wanted to do all legal reviews at one time. That's the reason for the extended delay. We wanted to do this together with what we'll be talking about in item 5.02. Just in case you missed it, we had extensive comments and review. That being said, we will first, I would like your consent to consider all of these reviews and consider an approval or not as a group of policies. So are there any objections to combining all of these into a single motion? No. Excellent. So we're looking for a motion then to actually put these to a vote. For this, I'll turn to BNF Chairperson, Director Becknell.
Per the recommendation of the Budget and Finance Committee, after legal review, I move the governing board approve in gross revisions the financial policies FI 01, 3, 10, and 17 as redlined.
Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Director Becknell, I believe after legal review, was only FI 10 that came back with any changes. Am I correct there?
Any kind of significant change, yes. FI 10 had a few significant changes, but the changes were not related to the policy itself, the spending limits, the authority levels. It was, again, in my opinion, kind of a largely wordsmithed job of making it more consistent with several of the other policies that we already had. So there were no significant changes, and we reviewed that again on Tuesday with the committee, and no one had any issues with those changes.
Thank you. It also, it aligned to other policies, and it also inserted some language directly from Arizona state statute, which our council felt better aligned us there as well. Any concerns on that or any of the policies? Yes, Director Turner.
I think there's a typo in FI 17, section 334. I don't know if we can bring that up on screen. And this is just a minor thing. In 334 there, it says the owners of the former residential unit. I believe that should be the former owners of the residential unit.
That was a great catch.
Yeah.
It's a typo that if we agree to modify, would be something that we could do before entering this in as final.
Yes, if we agree to modify it, then we'll just go through and have the consent motion.
I just want to make sure that our parliamentarians are in agreement. I could just look for agreement. So I just wanted to ensure. So any concerns or objections with that? Director Becknell, any concerns, you think?
No.
I didn't expect it. Great. I know you found a number, but any others in the FI policies?
Yeah, there are still some things I'm not too keen on in these policies, but they're not going to do any harm. So it's.
And I believe you articulated those in November, yes?
Some of them, yes.
This is I'm not trying to stifle you, we're just trying to move things along. So if you'd like to articulate them, the floor is open.
No, not on the financial ones.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, directors? Any other typos? So great. With that modification to FI 17, and the section that was just highlighted. Residents, do you have any questions or concerns? Then, Director Becknell, if you can reread your motion, please.
Per the recommendation of the Budget and Finance Committee, and after legal review, I move that the governing board approve in gross revision to the financial policies FI 01, 3, 10, and 17 as redlined.
And as modified.
And modified
Thank you.
to swap the two words around. Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks for taking the curveball as well. I'll put this to a quick vote. We'll start with Director Williams, please. Yes. Director Crum?
Yes.
Forsey?
Yes.
Chotton?
Yes.
Becknell?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And Director Piaskowski?
Yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous and approved. We'll move on. Section 5.02, similarly, we've had extensive conversations about these. There were a few more revisions that came back as well. But in this case, the conversations and debates we've had were a little closer in. I believe those occurred in January. Oh, I'm sorry, February, we agreed to move these to legal review. So those have come back from legal review with a few revisions. And we'll first put the, I'd like your consent to consider these as a group. Doesn't mean that, it means we could still vote yea or nay. Don't please, if you have concerns. But I'd like to consider them as a group. Are there any objections to that? No. Excellent. So then with that, why don't we turn to our Properties Chairperson, Director Chatton, for the motion.
Thank you, President Novello. Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after legal review, I move that the Governing Board approve the in-gross revisions to Facilities Policies 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10 as redlined.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Director Williams. Director Chatton, I know that there were a few pieces of input that were received back from our council, and you've discussed this together with your committee and with the folks who have worked on it. Can you give us a quick update on that discussion?
Yeah, well, this, as all of you know, these have been discussed several times.
Significantly
Discussed several times. And we've had a lot of input from a lot of different people on this. I know Holly Magrudy, spit it out, John, has done a lot of work on these. And Director Turner has also had quite a bit of input on these, as has staff. So I don't know if Nick had any minor word changes to these at the
I believe
last
he
moment.
did, but there might be more than that. So we'll start with want to start with the typos and so forth, Nick, or how would you like to, I'm sorry, Director Turner.
Yeah, there's one in FAO 2 3.3 where I think there's a missing not. The word not is missing in there. The second bullet under 3.3 is that renaming is allowed only for geographic feature names if the original honoree's character harms RSCW. I believe that should be not harm.
Oh, yes, it's the second bullet down under 3.3.
Yeah.
Right.
The renaming, if we go up to the top there, it just says renaming is strongly discouraged, but it is allowed only for geographic feature names or if the original honoree's character harms the recreation centre of Sun City West. So we're only...
No, I think in this case
yes,
it should say harms.
we're renaming it from the original. Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so I apologize. I
Direct-
thought we were
Director-
missing the word not there.
Director Eagle-eyed Turner, though, thank you for pointing it out.
Yeah.
Any other?
The other one is in FAO 7. I think there's a reference to the policy being in compliance with the RRMPs, whereas the RRMPs should in fact be in compliance with the policy. That's in 1.0 of FAO 7. The purpose of this policy is to ensure consistency with the association's rules, regulations and procedures. That should be the other way around. The RRMP should be consistent with the policy. But that does no harm. Our order of precedence of the document still applies, so it does no harm. So
Okay.
I think we should just leave it.
Next? Any others?
No, and
of that-
anything else doesn't matter. It's not that material.
Thank you. Director Graham? Director Piaskowski, I don't want to ignore in the event, I know that you're on the Properties Committee, but I want to ensure that you had no comment.
No, we're good.
Any resident comment in the room? And nothing online? I only wish to thank all the committees who participate in this. Everybody works very, very hard. In this particular one, I know that the Properties Committee worked very hard on this, and resident Holly McCurdy, a member of the committee, was pretty tireless in taking this task on. So I'd like to add my thanks for all of that work. And Director Chatton, with that, would you please reread your motion?
I would love to. Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after legal review, I move that the governing board approve the in-gross revisions to facilities policies 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10 as redlined.
Second?
We already had a second from Director Williams, but thank you, Director Becknell. So it only needs to be seconded once, but I do appreciate. Director Turner, why don't you start us with the voting, please, this time?
Yes.
Director Schlemmer? Yes. Director Becknell?
Second?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Director Williams? And Director Pyaszkowski?
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you for the laughter. The motion passes.
Could we have a round of applause?
Could we please? It is, that horse is dead. So we'll move on to agenda topic 5.03. And those here and watching back, I hope you enjoy the fact that we're having a good time today. All the directors, you all work very, very hard. So I'm glad that we're able to have a good and spirited discussion and also still remain cordial with one another. It's very important. We have to have our laughs whenever and wherever we can. So now, speaking of laughs, let's move into our operating budget. In our workshop last week, we had our first look at the operating budget as a governing board. Most of us had seen this in committee or by watching committee participation. We had a lot of questions, of course, but we had a 4.5-hour meeting last week. So those questions were consolidated, and thank you, directors, by the way. It doesn't mean it's your last round of those, but we had a first round of questions, and all those answers are attached, and I believe our governing board executive assistant gave us a printed version of this as well for us to look at. So I'm going to turn this back over now to our CFO, Cliff Swan, so he can address the operating budget draft, any questions, and start us with discussion.
Okay, thank you, President Novella. So yeah, we've attached the Q&A to the agenda. We can go down through those, but before we do that, are there any questions on the capital improvement side, the SIP budget, right now before we get into those Q&As? Any questions or comments from the committee?
So we're doing both. This is operating budget draft, questions and discussion, but we also want to cover the capital as well at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've attached it.
It's attached.
Yeah.
That's fair. So
we had
should
some
we start
comments.
with capital?
Yeah.
We could do either.
Yeah, if that's okay. Any questions on the capital budget at this time?
There are lots, but again, I just want to point out that the capital item for pool deck, which is a very big topic for us to discuss, that has its own agenda topic. So, and each of our committees are reviewing the capital budget for what we used to affectionately call pullouts or things that are topics for discussion. So this is our opportunity to go through that listing. One of the things Cliff and Herschel took on for us is that it appeared as though we had a few items that might have shifted in value. We're looking now, the attachment's been fully updated, and really the only, it might have been my misunderstanding or maybe what have you, what I was hearing. The only item that really changed from past discussions was the color block capital item for the R.H. Johnson courtyard renovation. And that value's now been updated in the color block to what was recommended and agreed by the Properties Committee, right?
Yeah, so and then at Properties, we're gonna give an updated presentation of what that's gonna look like and some more details around that. So stay tuned for that. And then as far as everything else, it's pretty much right on target. We did also update the 50,000 and over presentation to update that and attach that as well. That had additional details on the big capital improvement project items over 50,000. So that is also attached to the agenda. I just wanted to make sure if there were any questions or anything regarding that. We had some discussions at the Budget and Finance Committee on a few items as well. So I just wanted to make sure if there were any questions on that we could get those addressed and prepared for the next meeting.
So directors, I know that some of the committees haven't finalized or made those recommendations for items for us to discuss. And for clarity or attempted clarity from a timing perspective, please know that at our April 10th workshop, that is when we'll hear from every committee chairperson the input on items for us to consider discussing in more detail. And we'll go through this line item for all of our final comments, if you will, as a board. So this is an opportunity for us to ask some questions that lead into that, if anything arises. So we're seeing anything questions on any of the capital budget attachments? And Director Piaskowski, anything on those capital budget attachments that you wanted to ask?
I'm kind of at a loss just because I don't have the paperwork you guys do, and I can't do two screens because I'm not technologically able to do that. So is the golf balls under capital improvement, or is that just under golf? The moving of the golf machines, the golf ball range machines?
That is on the capital, on the SIP line items. And again, we've already had one committee that's recommended that we pull that out for extra review. It looks like the golf committee they'll consider that in their next as well.
Okay.
Asked from the golf committee to present an option that just covers the existing ball machines at Pebblebrook and Grandview. So we're going to present that at the next golf committee. So an update will be future coming on that.
So we'll see that in our April workshop.
Yes.
Right. Excellent. And
that's what I thought. I thought there was a little bit more detail, not just moving the machine. So I just wanted to make sure that.
Oh yeah, the original proposal, and which you'll see when you have the opportunity to look, because you right now you can only look at one screen at a time. I understand. So the attached over $50,000 presentation includes that item with a little more clarity. It's more than just moving the machines and running electrical. It's also putting a cover over the machines and adding an elevator or a lift, correct? Wow, I'm on it. I must have my coffee today. So there's more to it. You can see it there. And Director Piaskowski and all directors, if you're seeing some of these items that you want to make sure do get some advance attention, things that you have questions on, you get those, please get those into Cliff. Copy me if you're sending an email, so I'm aware. We'll consolidate those as well, any answers that come back, so that we're all up to date when we revisit this again at our April workshop. So again, this is an opportunity for us. We're extending the discussion that we had, or that we started last week, and answering a few questions from us. Directors, we have a really long document with Q&A. I don't know if you've had the chance to review all of that. Are there any items, do you want Cliff to go through any of those items now? Do you want to take the chance to read that first? I put it to you again, it's part of the It's attached for all of our residents to see as well as for our directors. Are there any that you want to cover in detail? I really hope that we don't have to read them all out, but.
And I would say too, we've got some follow-up at the sports pavilion and the golf committees as well.
Yes.
To look at a couple of items. So, moving forward, there could be some changes. I don't anticipate that they're going to be big movers in the budget, but so we could be looking at some changes from the revenue side. And so we'll continue to update on that as we move through the budgeting process. But yeah, if there's any further conversations or highlights on the Q&A, we can certainly work on those right now.
Anything that we wanted to cover now, we can still, we have lots of time to consider them. And if there are any additional questions, just send them on in advance. We want to be sure that we are getting all those questions out, answered, discussed as we move into the April workshop, where we'll have the input from all of our committees, so on capital anyway. So Cliff, with that, we can talk now about the operating budget as well, if there are any changes or things you wanted to go through?
Sure. Yeah. So the Q&A is attached. I don't have any changes as far as presenting any changes, other than be on the lookout for some things coming out of those committees from the operating side.
Right.
So if there's any of the Q&A that we need to dig into right now, I'm happy to do that.
I know that at least 5 of us were physically present at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting this week. And for directors and residents with an interest in, well, I'm sure we're all very interested in how we're going to fund the master plan. That's a big part of what Cliff presented. The Budget and Finance Committee did have a really good discussion on their views on the funding options. I really encourage you to review the comments of each of those. It was a short meeting. Thank you, Director Becknell, for setting the tone on short and efficient meetings. But it was short but very effective. While again, I encourage you to hear all of those comments individually, because the Budget and Finance Committee put a lot of time and thought into that. Want to give us a quick summary, Director Becknell, of what they discussed, and then I think Director Chatton may have a question too. But
During our Budget and Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday, we reviewed a couple of different options that Cliff had put together for us with regards to how we could begin to fund the master plan improvements that we want to make. And the one option that we had was have a $20 a year increase to our dues and I think it was just under $300 increase to APFs, Cliff. And that would then take us through and keep us at our fully funded balance above 40% through 2040. Another option that we had was to have a slightly smaller increase of $5 and a slightly smaller increase to APFs. But in order to do that, we would have to determine or decide to take all the golf courses that have not yet been had the irrigation systems done and been re-landscaped, and push them out instead of every other year, make them every third year. And when we looked at that, we realized that that would cost us at the end of the year or at the end of the term a little over $2.5 million to make that choice. And I think that the Budget and Finance Committee in whole were in consensus what they did not want to push out any of the golf projects, because we know that there's not only the hard dollar cost of what we know it will cost us to do it much later, but also the improvement in the cost savings that we have by getting the utilities and getting the irrigation systems done sooner than later. So the Budget and Finance Committee in large had voted to go with option A, which was the $20 increase and the increase in the APFs.
And we received the full presentation, directors, at last week's meeting. And thank you, Director Becknell, for the quick summary. Received that presentation last week with a couple of options for us to consider on starting the funding process. A couple of other things that came up at Budget and Finance that, just to remind us all, I believe we're all well aware of this, but when we're talking about the master plan, we haven't received those recommendations, and the governing board will receive, as Jason Genk from Barry Dunn just told us, will receive the full recommendations, if you will, next fall, sometime around September, for the governing board to evaluate and to start to identify the priorities. We just know that we don't want to just create a plan that sits on a shelf. I actually have a hard copy of the last master plan that was officially adopted from the governing board, and it is a hard copy that's sitting on the shelf in the governing board office. So we want to implement this one. Not saying that the last one wasn't fully implemented. I'm saying we want to ensure that this investment is also reflected. So that's what we're considering here. As a part of that, we all recognize that this is a wonderful concept and it's a great way to get started. So what Stephen and Cliff and the team are putting forward to us is this notion of having assuming that we will have, I believe it's around $15 million is the round number to implement this, some of these recommendations, priorities the governing board will choose over a period of time coming up in the next few years. We don't know what the total number of what we'd really like to do is going to be, but there'll be other things that will come up over the years to come. So I just wanted to, it's something that also came out of Budget and Finance, want to make sure we're all setting expectations that this is, it seems like a big number, but it's a start. Our neighbors in Sun City are facing some large investments, not saying that we're going to rebuild an entire center as Sun City is doing, but what were those, just to give us because for some of us who've been away from some of these numbers for a while, we may not really appreciate the full dollar value. So what were those again?
Yeah, so we have, if the way we look at it is we've already have reserve study dollars in the reserve study for some of the potential master plan areas. Places like, of course, Kuntz Courts has been identified fully as, let's see what comes out of the master plan to see what we're going to do with that area. There's a couple other places that we've identified that are potential areas, but essentially with those identified areas, the social hall, the library, and Kuntz Courts, there's approximately $3.6 million in reserve funds that we've already funded through our reserve study for repair and replacement items at those facilities. So we have that already built into our modeling, already built into the existing budget without doing any additional master plan funding. That's in there. We also model $1.4 million a year in new capital because we know that there's new capital enhancements that we do every year in each budget cycle. So for example, but this year we have approximately $500,000 earmarked for new in this budget that's being presented. So with the $1.4 million per year, with the $3.6 million, if we injected another $6 million into our model, that would give us over $15 million in potential funds to address master plan items that come out of the master plan. So basically what we're doing is we're injecting $6 million into the modeling for master plan items. And with that $6 million, along with the 3.6, along with the 5.4, that gets us over $15 million in master plan funds.
It sounds like a lot. My point was, in Sun City, unfortunately, they have to rebuild an entire recreation center. I believe their current estimate for that is $30 million.
Yeah, 30 to 35 million to build a rec center from the ground up is basically the numbers.
We're not facing that.
No. That's what's been kicked around. So the context is 15 million's a lot. but it's not a lot. But it's a start. And we think, so we put that in the modeling. Keep in mind too, it's very important to note that, you know, what's been presented would have to continue to be approved every year in future budgets, okay? So if we did approve, for example, an additional $20 to be earmarked every year, that would only be approved in this next year's upcoming budget, and future boards would have to then approve that as well. But in the modeling, what we've done is we've said, okay, if this additional 6 million, how much would we have to raise from the community to hold our 40% FFB percent? The good news is we don't have to raise 6 million to do that. We only have to raise about 4.2 million to do that, because our reserve fund currently can absorb the rest of that 6 million, that 1.8 million. So if we needed to raise that, what would we do? We could essentially, everybody would pay $100, but they would pay it over 5 years. So $20 a year for 5 years. And then what we would do in the modeling is by year 2032, we would apply that $20 to whatever the dues increase for that year would be to offset. So if there was a $25 dues increase that year, we'd apply the 20 to it, it'd be a $5 dues increase for that year. So the idea is that you raise the capital to do the projects, and then once you've done that, at that point in time, you adjust moving forward. Again, that's all modeling, it's all projections. It's all projections. And then maybe we raise the money sooner. Maybe the reserve fund returns 10% in the market, and we have some great years, and APFs kick it in the butt, and maybe we raise the capital to do it in 3 years. Maybe we don't. Or maybe we get to year 3 and we decide that, you know what, there's another 6 million that we need, and the board starts having conversations about how we raise that. But the point is that we get started now and then assess as we go along. And that's the beauty of not going to a special assessment, is you can pivot, right? So we can start with $20 this year, and then we can reassess it the next year and the next year. And it allows us to be able to pivot at that point in time. Maybe we don't have to charge that $20 by year 4, or maybe we need to charge $40 by year 4. But
Not that that's on the table.
yes,
Yet,
it's not modeled, but yes. But every year has its own budget, and it allows us to start right now and be able to pivot later on down the road. And we could still say that we've never charged a special assessment.
Right, we've never done that. It isn't, that is the option that we, and if we did that, that's a different discussion that we would have, but those are the possible funding options. And remember too, for directors, we're looking at this year's budget, the upcoming budget year's decisions, which is for fiscal '27, starting in July. So we're only, if you will, committing to 1 year of any of this, but the timing for us in terms of making those decisions in April, we'll be finalizing our capital recommendation, and in May, we finalize our operating, our expense, and dues are a part of that. So we have, we don't have a lot of time, but we do have a few more workshops and meetings to discuss this. So we're not finalizing it today. So but we're having, wanted to extend the discussion from last week. I know you had your hand raised earlier, Director Chapman. Do you have questions for today? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I just don't want to ignore you.
Always have a question. I have a comment on this proposal, but also I'm curious, if we're not going to discuss all the Q&As today, when are we going to do it? I mean, these people put in a lot of different questions. Is everyone that proposed a question here satisfied with the answer, or is there further discussion?
Thank you. That's a good way to put what I did not say, right? Yeah. I tried to say, please go through it, and if you want to discuss any of these in detail, let's bring them out.
And my comment on, I really appreciate that Cliff is proactive and that we are looking towards the future as to what we're going to do. But I'm also really concerned that we're being a little cart before the horse here. We have no idea what the master plan is going to suggest. We don't know how many millions it's going to take. The idea, huh?
Say billions.
No, I
No,
said
he said
millions, but
with
it
an
could be more. And the idea of putting this additional $20 on right away and have a 7% increase in our member dues, I'm sure would go over like a lead balloon. So I just think we should wait to see what comes of the master plan. We're going to have to set some priorities. It's not that everything we have is just going to stay there and we add to it. Maybe there's some things that have to go away and some other things. And I don't see the emergency of it. Again, I like the idea of being proactive, but as you say, we have several million already in our budget. So if there are immediate needs because of the master plan, we have some dollars to deal with that, and then we can come up with a plan going forward as to just what it's going to take to fund that master plan. So
That's a good comment. Well, all comments are good comments. But you are correct, right? It might be helpful, Cliff, to evaluate how much, if you will, capital the governing board next year will have available for potential investment. And also, I know that part of what we would, if you will, what we gain is some time value of money, right? If we start putting money aside now, it's like anything, when you're saving for the future. Could you model that? I don't know if you have this, you have so much in that head of yours. I don't know if you've already looked at what's the possibilities or the range of possibilities for what we would forego in that investment loss, lack of a better phrase, opportunity loss of not investing that $660,000 now.
One of the questions, I didn't know who posed the question, so maybe it was yours. How much do we raise in the first year? It's answered in the question. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's approximately 600,000.
It's question 4.
Yeah. Can you bring that the question Q&A?
Question 4 reads, what happens if a future governing board decides to forego the master plan funding option and roll back or stop funding? I see this as a risk. How much funding will we raise solely in year 1 with each scenario? That's the only decision we can control.
Yep. So in the first year, in the $20 model, it would raise $660,000. In the $5 model, it would raise $182,000.
If we one of the scenarios that we could consider is no additional, that we don't start saving for this now, if you will. We don't raise specifically until the governing board evaluates the outcomes and makes priorities. If I heard you correctly, Director Chatton, correct? That we would evaluate starting this investment process, if there is one to be made, additional funding, we assume that there will be, that the governing board will evaluate that next year. We would lose whatever the monies that you've outlined here, and also any interest that would be gained on those, correct?
Yeah, so it would be, I've got modeled 5%, 5.1% from reserve fund investments. So it would be the 660, 5% of that for the first year. In terms of dollars that we would have in 2028, 27, 28, there'd be 1.4 million modeled for new capital. And then we'd have to bring the model up for me to tell you what the reserve study money would be in that year and we'd have to determine what space it was for and all of that. But I can report back on that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful to see that as another starting point, right? Director Chatton, we would actually see what the impacts would be of deferring the decision on that savings plan, for lack of a better phrase, if we deferred that by a year. Did I restate that correctly, by the way, Director Chatton?
close enough.
And what else did you have? What other questions?
No, I had some comments on the Q&A, but nothing else on this, no.
So let's go through them. For those, either whether you posed the question first, I think one of the suggestions that you had was a good one, that For those that did put in some of these questions, why don't we start with those of you who did, those of us who did, and if you need clarification on those answers. Yes, Director Turner.
I'd like to take these away, have another read and think, and ask questions later. I can send them in written. Yeah.
That's fair enough. Whatever works.
And I have another comment on.
Sorry, go ahead.
I have another comment on Director Chatton's suggestion about delaying the collection of extra funds for the capital projects. Is that one of my concerns I have, and I don't know what the answer is to this question, but one of the concerns I've always had here is that we can't move fast enough. We can never move fast enough because we have an annual budgeting cycle. And if something doesn't get into that annual budgeting cycle, we miss 12 months. I don't want us to be in a situation where we've delayed the collection of this revenue, as a result of which we miss another 12 months on something. I want us to be able to move. I would rather have dollars available which are not spent and result in future savings in fees than not have the dollars available and not be able to do something. We have lots of resident demand to do things, and our job is to prioritize those and get them done as fast as we can. So I'd hate to see something which results in a potential delay, which is why I support putting in the planning dollars in this year's capital budget under the new. We're not waiting to see what the issues, the requirements are. We know there's going to be something. Planning dollars are there. I believe that this collection of revenue is a similar kind of issue.
Okay. Thank you for the comment. Anything you wanted to respond to there, Cliff?
No, I mean, that's just the idea, as well as whatever we do in the first year, we only collect half of it in terms of dues. So we're able to collect the full amount the following year. So you put yourself behind also on track of the full amount of the $20 or whatever would get put in there. You'd only collect half of that in the first year too. So, but yeah, no, it's kind of the idea. You just start funding it now because it gives you more ability to act instead of react.
I would agree we're always in a hurry. I really hate putting stuff off. But as I said, there is money there now without these additional funds to react to some of the more immediate needs and then plan further down the road. I'm sure we're going to lose out on at least $700,000 by not putting this into effect right now, but not knowing what we want to do, even funding for things that we don't know what we want to do yet. I think it's just premature.
So one of the, go ahead, Director Piaskowski, before I wrap.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I just want to make sure I fully understand this. So as of right now, we roughly have $3.5 million in, is that what you said, in reserve funds? For
Allocated for some of the.
Allocated already for some things, is that correct?
So that 3.6, and it's roughly spread out over probably about 7 years. In different 3.6 million over 7 years. So if we moved it up in that window, it's 3.6 million, but over 7 years in those various areas, the 3 areas that we talked about.
Okay, so the fact of the matter is that as of right now, we would have some monies available to us, to the governing board and to the residents, basically, to decide, once we get the plan next September, October, we would have some of that money available to us to start on a project. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Terry bring up the modeling right now and just kind of show you where those.
I saw the modeling.
Well,
I get the modeling. I understand that. But
let me finish. I want to show you where those reserve study dollars, what years they hit in, so you know when that money's available. So called out on the bottom, in 2028, we have 177,000 available from the reserve study. In 2030, we've got 302,000. 2031, that's a big year. We've got 2.3 million, and then down the line. So that's when those funds become available. Essentially, in the reserve study, those are the years that we have earmarked to take care of those areas.
So
That's, yeah.
as of right now, what would we have, how much is Coons? What do we have in Coons courts that has been sitting there for 6 years?
That's at about
It's been sitting there for 2 years, just as an update.
It's about $1 million. So in the reserve study, that's in that 2031. It's $1 million, approximately.
Approximately, we have $1 million at our fingertips once we get our master plan in October to say, okay, we've decided this is what we're gonna do. We would have access to that money. Is that how I?
And so we'd have to move it up, but yeah, if we decided to do it in 2031, it'd be $1 million. It'd be a little bit less if we got to 2030 or 2029 or 2028. But yes, we'd have reserve dollars to address that area and however we wanted to address it. Don't know what the amount to address it would be, but we'd have $1 million.
Right. I am kind of with John Chatton in the center in the fact that I think we're putting the cart before the horse because we do not know what the plan is going to bring. We have ideas, but we have no idea of what actually is going to come out of it. And I think we're already looking at a $22 increase and then another $20 increase. I would prefer to say to you guys, you know what? We have $6 million that is going towards a project at Stardust that we could put off. And I understand what Director Becknell said, that, if we if we put the golf courses out every 3 years, it's gonna cost us $2.5 million. Except for, with that said, why are the residents that are living in Sun City West today taking the brunt of replacing all of the irrigation in the next 6 years or 8 years and that's gonna last for 50 years. So why aren't we looking at that saying, I get it's gonna cost us an additional $2.5 million, but Todd should still have enough heads from the other 2 golf courses that we've done and other things to help us expand that 2-year to a 3-year. And again, not having to have the brunt of the generation that is living in here in Sun City West right now, take that brunt of expenses. Just asking.
Yeah, I would say that the irrigation projects that are currently at the end of their useful life, essentially, and scheduled to get done by 2035, those have been paid for over the last 40 years, and 35 to 40 years. When we replace those, they'll go out 70 years. So there'll be plenty of time for the new members who move here over time to pay for those. And then, just look, the idea with raising the funds is we have the ability with how large we are and how many residents that we have. We had a BNF member that just really put it, I thought, very well. And it's basically, you can collect $100 from every member over 5 years. And if you're telling me that if you collect $100 from me and I can get potentially what I want in this community out of a master plan, I'm all in. $100 over 5 years. And I think, that's a good way to look at it. So I just want to provide that perspective too, because you're really, if you think about it that way, yes, it's an investment, but then what can we do with that investment? Well, when we put those, and those dollars aren't all on the backs of our residents, because you're talking about $100 for 28, you're talking about 2.8 million. The rest of it's driven from APF fees, which are paid for by new residents. So it's not all on the backs of the members. And as far as the old irrigations go, those have been saved up for since they were installed.
And let me make my point and then we'll go to you unless, thank you, John, Director Chatton. I keep calling, that's fine. In any event, one of the things that I just wanted to point out is that Cliff is already going to come back to us with the impacts of deferring that decision. So if we simply, as a governing board, decide that we will defer the entire decision about how to fund the master plan for another year, what does that cost us financially? I believe that's what Cliff's going to come back and show us a little bit. What do we have available? When I say we, what will the governing board have available to its fingertips for potential spend in fiscal year '28, and what would that look like? And now Director Chatton, I'm sorry, and then to Director Turner. Director Chatton first.
Just looking for some clarity, are you talking about $20 per year per member or $20 additional per month per member?
$20 per year per member.
Oh, well, that's a lot different than per month.
So it's a total of, in that particular option, it's $100 over 5 years
Per member over 5 years.
And it spreads it out over time. So, and the second option is $5 per year with some other deferrals, but those were just two to think about, right? So, and we have others that, one of which that may not be exactly what you said, but the one that I had mentioned was do nothing this year and defer the decision, what do we gain and lose, right? And I think the governing board needs to recognize that some of the things that are being envisioned will cost a significant amount, more than we've allocated so far potentially for a space like Kuntz. But nonetheless, one of the things that the governing board, if deferred, right, if we do that, decide to do that, the governing board can look at those options and we'll have to live with those choices, which is, again, we've all had to live with budgeting decisions. It is definitely, that is an option available to us. So, Director Turner?
Yes, I'd just like to just talk about the, current residents paying for things that future residents will benefit from. Economists have a thing about this, it's called, it's the discount rate for the future. What is your investment today worth to future generations of people? And it applies in all kinds of areas. So people refer to it as things like sitting in your children and grandchildren sit in the shade of the tree that you plant. And we need to consider that along with our duty as a governing board to act in a responsible way, and also to protect and preserve and enhance the assets of this community. And doing golf course irrigation projects is part of that. If we don't do them, we have a few extra $1,000 a year in cost of fixing what we have. If we do them, we build a good, long, strong future for this community in terms of reduced power consumption, reduced water consumption, and also the fact that they're going to last 70 years. And we have to bear that in mind as a governing board. That's our job. We don't want people in 10, 15, 20 years' time saying, what a terrible job the governing board did, this place is going down the toilet. That's what we're here for. That's why we're sitting at this table, is to make sure that those things don't happen in 20, 30, 40 years' time. It's our legacy. We should think about that. Don't discount the future to such a point that you're not prepared to spend an extra $20 a year.
And residents, before I make an attempted joke, I want to remind us that all the governing board directors are volunteers. So the joke I was about to make is it's a very difficult decision. That's why they pay us the big bucks. But I did want to underscore the fact that that's a joke and we're all volunteers. So thanks for your thoughts. Any other thoughts or questions on this before we take a quick break? I'm sorry, Director Schlemmer, sorry about that.
I will be quick, because I don't want to get into a lot of detail. But I do think we need to keep in mind a couple of things. First, what is it that made Sun City West great? And what made Sun City West great is a couple of things, in my opinion. Number one, the incredible diverse and well-kept array of amenities that we have that have been maintained and preserved and advanced and so forth. So our facilities do not look today like they looked when they were built anywhere from 50 years ago in the case of this, and 30 years ago in the case of Palm Ridge. The second piece that made Sun City West strong is the fact that we have been very fiscally responsible in maintaining very strong reserves at a very strong fully funded balance ratio so that we are in a position to endure what is required to keep this community going forward. And so I think those are the things that as I look at this and I think about how do we fund what's coming out of the master plan, I'm looking at those percentages along the bottom. And when we start dipping down and we get down to close to or into the 40% or below 40% levels, and none of these show that right now, but I'm just saying that's what we need to be thinking about is not just how do we fund the future, but how do we preserve the things that have made us great. The other thing, though, I think we have to keep in mind also, and I think Director Paskowski kind of alluded to this, is if we follow the 5 years of 20 recommendation and then the $22 increase, and let's assume this budget flows through and nothing gets changed and it's exactly where it ends up. I know that's probably not going to happen. We'll then be looking at, what, a $42 increase at a time when all of us are being hit in ways because of things going on around the world. So when you pull into Fry's to get gas and you realize this week it's $1 more than it was a week or two ago and so forth. So I think we also as a board have to be cognizant of that. What I'm leading up to is what I would like to see is, I love the model you did with the 5 years of $20. Could we show that in maybe a couple of other, or at least one other level, like maybe 5 years of adding a $10 increment, or maybe a graduated 10, 15, 20, 20, 20, or something like that, to get a little bit creativity. I'm not advocating kicking the can down, but what I'd like to see is, can we do something along the lines of what you've done, but also be cognizant of the fact that asking our residents, especially the ones who are on a little more fixed income, to come up with $42 more a year might be a challenge. So I'd like to see a way that we can meet some common ground and accomplish both ends of the deal.
Yeah, good question. I would say the KPIs to this modeling is that you hold 40%, and to the $20 modeling, it's that you hold the irrigation projects. So we spread that 6 million heavier in the first 2 years, lighter in the last 3, or last 2, excuse me, to try and kind of smooth that out. Mm-hmm. So I would say probably to hold the 40%, it would probably have to be a mixture of what years we wanted to spend the capital.
Okay.
On the 6 million,
Yep.
or we reduce that to 5 million.
Yep.
Okay. And then it would also probably say, okay, well, maybe, we get through Pebblebrook on the irrigation projects, but maybe the desert courses get spread out every 3 years. So it would be probably a combination of all those things to get to where you want to be. So, and again, this is all modeling, and this is all, we can't bind future boards to these numbers anyway. So I think what we can do is whatever gets approved, we can model what that looks like. Okay. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But I can certainly put some stuff together that would hold the 40%. We'd have to mix some of the other KPIs around, and I can report back with that.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think, again, there was a lot of material in the Q&A, and not everybody had a chance to, not all the directors had a chance to see that and really digest it. So whether you submitted a question or not, take a look at those and come back to Cliff with a need for clarification. We'll have time to discuss those questions and answers in more detail at our April workshop. So we can differ. I do see that, but thank you. Keep me honest. I wanted to turn it first to our directors to make sure that there weren't any other burning questions before we turn to residents. Thank you, Director Forsey. We do have questions online. So it was a good discussion. Before we do move on, we do want to address some of the or resident attendee questions. Are there anyone in the room? While you're coming to the podium, let's read out some of the questions that are coming into us online. So owner member, we presume, Dale Haynes states, seems odd to be willing to fund the planning process but defer the important funding. Dave DeWitt also states, we are all consumers of capital, i.e. we all consume irrigation whenever we golf. As such, we should provide funding to replace or upgrade irrigation. Pushing that cost to future owner members is irresponsible, in my opinion. So those are, thus far, the comments online. Sir, if you could introduce yourself by name and record number, thank you.
I'm Dennis Vanderplow, 140090. Just have a question or a thought, and I believe I follow Director Chatham. If you don't know what this master plan is going to come out with, why start paying now for something you don't know about? Especially today, in this day and age, you're adding an additional $20 to a potential $22 membership dues increase on something you don't know about yet. If you have some funds to get the important stuff done, identified with the regular maintenance, you can certainly wait 6 more months, because you won't know what the master plan is until September, October. Next year's budget is in June. So you're looking at perhaps delaying it for 8 months to find out exactly what in that master plan you really want to do the first year to second year. Secondly, keeping this constant increase of the, the asset preservation fee. Mortgage rates now are over 6%. You're going to add on another buy-in increase that's going to end up actually causing our owners to decrease their selling price to allow people to come in and pay that exorbitant entry fee. So there's a give and take. And today, with today's market and today's pricing, I think it's prudent to at least delay this until next year. Who knows? You know, the economy could even be worse. Hopefully, it's going to be better. But to do it now with the cost of everything and the mortgage rates to affect that asset preservation fee, I think is a little premature. I think just to wait for 1 more year gives the board a finite idea of what the master plan is. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. And again, we'll take a look together with the CFO and his team. We'll take a look at what the impacts of waiting 1 year would be, right? And evaluate that as one of the scenarios. So thanks for your comments. Anything that you wanted to say in response? This is part of the fun and the challenge of serving on the governing board as well as on the staff when we're at such an honestly exciting time in Sun City West's future. This is not a difficult. This is a very difficult, not an easy discussion to have, but I believe we're all, but I am grateful to staff for starting the discussion. The decision on this rests with the governing board, and that's why we're spending so much time talking about it. It's a tough one. But thanks for starting us off. Any other, yes, please, Stephen?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so I understand the concern of not knowing what it's going to come out with. I would encourage you all to look at the presentation that was just given by Jason of Barry Dunn. On one of the slides, it shows one of the outcomes is going to be is a list of projects, and it's going to list the cost estimates on those. It will be millions of dollars worth of improvements. And I'm quite certain that the governing boards of the future are going to want to implement those in some fashion, maybe not all of them, but certainly we'll start then choosing what priority of those will happen. But there's no question there will be millions of dollars worth of potential improvements. So it's not a matter of knowing necessarily, what's coming out of it. We just know that there's going to be projects that are going to be desired by the community, and which is why we presented this as a way to kind of get that funding going. As you mentioned, President Novello absolutely is 1,000% a governing board policy decision on what to do with this.
It's a tough one. I wish it was somebody else's. No, I'm joking. This is why we all volunteered to serve, right? These kinds of tough decisions. So we have a lot to consider and evaluate. And again, I think part of the evaluation is the current state of the economy and what we're all facing as well. So with that, we have one more agenda item to cover, and it's not necessarily a short one. Directors, would we like to take a 5-minute break? So everyone watching will be back online in 5 minutes by the room clock. That would be 10:36. Thank you. 11:38. I don't know what time zone I was in when I said 10, but 11:38, we'll resume our meeting now. Exactly. Wishful thinking indeed. We're currently at the point of agenda topic 5.04. So last week, we started talking about our pool deck options and wanted to take the opportunity to say a couple of quick things. First of all, for anyone who's watching or listening or here in the room, no decisions have been made here, right? So we have a few options that were available to us. Our capital improvement project manager, Herschel Workman, Cliff, and others brought in some experts who spoke to us last week about what some of the options are and about the recommendations that were made. Coming out of that recommendation, we had some follow-up questions both in the room and after. So most especially what we wanted to do is see not just the cost. We all understand, and when I say we all, both the governing board and staff understand and appreciate that the R.H. Johnson repairs to the pool decking and coping did not go as planned. The product and the vendor failed us, and every warranty repair has failed us as well. So we had that discussion and obviously took this on starting in September together. Together, the operations staff and the governing board share this as our number one priority for this fiscal year in terms of understanding not only what do we do with Johnson, but what do we do across all of our decks going forward. That is the governing board's one of our key focuses for this year. So, but I wanted to assure all of our fellow owner members and residents that no decisions have been made. Wanted to assure you all that we're well aware of what's at stake. Our pools are a very critical amenity and something that we all share and value. So while we just spent a great deal of time talking about the very important master plan initiatives, none of that matters if we don't have these beautiful facilities that we're very proud of keeping up over time. So we all get that and we really appreciate it. So with that, we asked the staff and CFO to come back to us at this committee, at this meeting, and help us understand the total cost, if you will, of not only repairing and renovating Johnson, but really all our pools, and that's a cost over time. We asked for that kind of cost to be extended, not only for the recommendation, which was for another form of a rubberized pool deck called EPDM, I believe. But we also asked for an acrylic covering over cement, or commonly known as cool deck. We asked for the full costs of that, both for Johnson and extended going forward as well. So that's where we are at this point. Please understand, we all appreciate the seriousness of this decision as well. It is a policy decision, if you will, a governing board decision, because this is more than just one repair. This is something that will strategically impact us, impact our amenities, and impact our cost base going forward. So with that, back to you, Cliff.
Okay. We met internally and wanted to show some numbers here. Just want to also reiterate that there's two short-term solutions to address the highest area that needs to be addressed, which is the coping. Those two options are to use a Schluter solution, which creates a transition from the current existing rubber deck to either an acrylic on the coping or just a painted concrete. You could do either one, but the Schluter solution gives you the transition to both of those different areas, okay? And then there's the EPDM, and I want to reiterate, the EPDM solution is a solution that incorporates both recycled rubber and what the presenters last week talked about, something called virgin rubber. So the recycled rubber is the rubber that currently exists there, but in their application and in the new best practice for applying this is you apply the recycled rubber as your base layer and you finish it with the virgin rubber. And the virgin rubber is not susceptible to the water, the issues with water and the issues with sunlight. It holds up much better than it doesn't degrade like the recycled rubber does. So the solution we have now is just a recycled rubber solution in total. It doesn't have the virgin rubber incorporation into it that seals it and gives it that long life. So that's the two different solutions. So both of these solutions could be taken care of if we just decide to do the coping and then live with the rubber until whenever we decide to change that. Both of these solutions can be done in this year's operating budget. Okay? Now, if we decide to move forward with either an acrylic, full acrylic, or full EPDM virgin rubber solution, these are the numbers and the years that we would do these projects in the current reserve study. So we would next year do R.H. Johnson, and then the following year do Palm Ridge Outdoor, and so on. Now, Koontz is already scheduled, is already reserved, it's fully reserved, it's in the reserve already, and it's between the two number 137.5 and 187. So we've got that. I feel comfortable with that process. It's already set for 28, 29. Palm Ridge Outdoor and RH, both of those are basically being moved up to those years. So those are not on track to be fully reserved, and we'd have to increase our reserve spending for those. And then finally, Beardsley is on the reserve study, but it's on the reserve study as the current application that we currently do, which is a grit finish put down on that terrazzo flooring. But that terrazzo flooring, we're finding out, has really met its useful life after this 5-year application, and we really need to resurface that with a new surface. So that would be the cost of doing that. So you've got the cool deck cost at $15.28 a square foot, and then you have the EPDM virgin rubber solution at $20.83 a square foot. Those are the costs in the proposed years that we would do those decks. So now, if you do a 5-year cost analysis on all of these solutions, both of these solutions, what we did is we used the numbers from Cardinal on the costing to put an acrylic deck down as well as the yearly maintenance, and then the cost to put the EPDM virgin rubber solution along with the, we have it down as a 3 to 5 year maintenance schedule on the high traffic pool at RH Johnson. Since this was presented last week, we've called the supplier in Georgia of the product that is being used for this virgin rubber solution. They then turned us on to a preferred vendor that they've used or that they've sold to in Tempe. We went on that vendor's website and saw that they put this down in Apache Junction, Parks and Rec Center. In Apache Junction, huge pool, just very similar to the pool that we have. It has a diving pool attached to it, to its lap pool, but everything else looks almost the same with the beach entry on one end, big circular fountain, a walk-in. I mean, the layout looks pretty much the same as ours. They do have a giant pool slide parked in the middle of it, but other than that, it's very similar, and it's been down for 5 years. Huh? Oh, 2015. It's been down since 2015. Wow, it's been down for 10 years. And they recommended, they said, that they do a 3-year treatment on it because of the high traffic that gets put on that. So we modeled in here a 3-year, because of the high traffic nature of RH Johnson, we put a 3-year maintenance on that one, but kept the others at 5 based on the traffic at those in this modeling. So basically, the cool deck is a 5-year solution. So you go through the 5-year cost on the replacement is the exact cost of doing the project, which is $275. And then we broke the yearly maintenance is $75,000 a year. So the 5-year cost on RH Johnson for that surface, we have at $575,000. the cost of putting the EPDM down at RH Johnson is $375,000. You get a 15-year life on that. So you take that 375, divide it by 15, and multiply it times 5. That's the 5-year cost. And then you take the maintenance and distribute that over 5 years. So you do it fully once at, what was the cost, 65,000? And then 2 more years on top of that would make it 108,000 for that cost in that same time period. So the total cost would be 233,000 over a 5-year period for that solution. And likewise down the line for each pool accordingly. Okay. So one of the questions as well was, what's the impact on the FFB? So if we moved all these projects up to 26 to the current proposed capital improvement budget, based on what we have reserved currently, so not what the fully reserved amount would be the year that we currently have them set, but what do we have fully funded in terms of where we're at now versus the lifing of the pools. The total impact for the acrylic solution would be less than 0.5%, and the total impact to the full EPDM virgin rubber would be approximately 1% impact. But again, keep in mind, you're resetting those assets, and the future FFBs will be dropped by that amount because you'd be resetting those assets and redoing them. So it's a nominal impact. It's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it's a nominal impact in terms of fully funded balance percent and the fully funded balance. That's all I got.
Thank you. This is helpful additional information to quantify what we've heard that cool decking is more expensive. Now we can actually see a little bit more color on that. So this will help us as we continue to analyze the options. Director Schlemmer?
If you go back to your first slide. So under what you just outlined, you would have the ability to completely redo the Johnson Pool deck in the next fiscal year, 26, 27, correct? Is that what the budget, the next slide shows?
So we don't have it currently marked in the budget. So we'd have to move it up on the reserve.
Okay.
And it would get added. So say we have approximately 11 million this year in the budget,
Okay.
it would be 11.375 million.
If we did this.
If we did this, yeah. So it would be added and approved as part of the budget for next year.
So you're kind of going to what my question is going to be. Given that it's 375,000 to put down the EPDM, if that's the course we take, or 275 if we do the cool decking, would it make more sense, it seems to me it would, to not do the interim solution, because we're going to spend 60 or 70 and just invest in this?
Absolutely. I mean, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I understood.
Yeah. So the coping solution, really, we've talked. I mean, it would only make sense to do the coping solution with the EPDM to test it out.
Yep.
And live with that deck for another year and put it in next year's proposed 27-28 budget. If you were going to go that route, if you wanted to test that product without going full bore on it,
Gamble $60,000.
Gamble 60.
If it works or doesn't work.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And the other option, of course, we're looking at making a decision here on, that's why we've been pushing on getting a decision made first on what do we as a board want to do policy-wise with our pool decks overall. Once we make that decision, the next of do we fund or do we get started with a coping repair now, that falls out of that one. So that's the reason why we've been driving on this. We also need to decide, to be really frank, I've just presumed all along that we would be funding some kind of a replacement based on the current condition of Johnson's pool deck. I know that that's not the recommendation of our staff, but that was the reason why we had been asking all along, what are these numbers? And we feel like this is tied to our capital decisions, because this is tied to our capital decisions. If we do decide we want to include this in the capital program for 26, 27, we need to see that in our models and start making that decision next month. So that's the reason for the timelines as they are.
Also, keep in mind that these are set in different years, so you do have flexibility. Even just because you go with the EPD or you go with one solution for R.H. Johnson doesn't tie you to the other solution, to that solution to the other pools as well. So you still have time to assess that.
Yeah, and I would just like to clarify something. Per Director Schlemmer's question, total cost of doing the whole pool, if you go the EPDM route, is $375. If you do the coping route at $60, then if you decide to do the rest of it EPDM, that's not going to be an additive cost. It's not going to be another $375 on top of that because you've already done the coping. So that's going to be reduced somewhat, maybe not $60,000, but there's going to be a number that $375 will be reduced.
So we don't lose the coping.
Right.
Thanks for there are so many variables. Thank you for clarifying. Are there, okay, please.
I think I just saw that. Maybe I just lost it because it's so late. You mentioned that in talking to the supplier, they brought up an organization that has done a similar type pool in the East Valley.
Yes.
Is the company that did that the same vendor who was here? No. Completely different vendor? Okay, thank you.
And I think it's important to point out too, thank you, Director Schlemmer and all directors for your questions. So the folks who came in last week were willing to come in and speak to us, if you will, as experts to explain some of the options. Whatever choices we make as a board, subject to FI-10. It's our policy on procurement. So there'd be a full vendor selection process, sealed bids, et cetera, et cetera. That was not intended to, I asked, and I think Director Forsey and many other directors have asked as well, that was not a vendor selection or even an endorsement as I heard it, correct?
Yeah, just to be clear, so the vendor, we'd reached out, Herschel had reached out to several, and that particular vendor was the only vendor that we were able to get to come in to discuss the products, and we wanted to have somebody, an outside person, provide some information to the board. That was not a vendor selection or endorsement or recommendation or anything on our behalf, and certainly was not what we were looking to have presented, in fact, as well. To be quite frank, it didn't present the way that we were looking to have it present. But to the question, yes, we would, the one in the city of Apache Junction has put this down, and I'm happy to hear, I thought it was only 5, but if it's from 2015, it's even better that they've had it that long. And the vendor that they use, and they've done this process, and to Cliff's point, they've done it every 3 years versus 5. That's a great example of what this could be as far as a solution, potential solution for us. So, but yes, the vendor from last week that we discussed was not anything that we would be looking to move forward with.
Any other, are there any other follow-ups or any other comments? This helped me and hopefully answered a few other questions from the board in terms of what those options are and what the prices would be. Knowing that we have to, at our next workshop in April, are there other scenarios we want to consider? Director Turner, it looked like you had a question.
Yeah, it was just the issue of chemical leaching. I know this product is probably smelly when it first goes down, and it probably smells for a little bit longer, or it may be a lot longer than the vendors who were here before, last week indicated. But I don't see that as being an issue. That will go away. I just think we need a little bit more research on potential of chemical leaching into the pool and a comparison of that with cool decking. I don't know how we go about getting that information, but I think that's just something we need to consider when we're making the decision.
I think we can leave that with Stephen.
Yeah, and exactly, and I understand and I appreciate that. I would say, again, I look at if the city of Apache Junction was able to put this product down, and they would have similar concerns as us as far as they're a high traffic pool. I know that. I know the city manager over there really well. I know that that's kind of their crown jewel, just like our RH Johnson is. And so they're not going to put down a product that would cause any harm or concerns for their residents, nor are they going to put down a product that is not going to be one that's going to be effective. So when I heard that they had done this, I was actually really pleased to hear that we had this as a great example of something we could look at and get some good information about their experience with it.
We also had, and thank you very much to the team, the vendor that was in speaking last week had mentioned a high-profile hotel resort in Phoenix, Scottsdale area that had recently made this decision to move. And I believe, Herschel, you were able to potentially get us, we could potentially have some contact with the engineer who made that decision. Is that, I didn't read it fully, but is that?
Yeah, I've spoken with the engineer who was involved in making the decision for them to use EPDM over at the Hotel Tapatio, I believe is the name. I spoke with him, and I guess I'll just give you kind of a summary of what he told me. So the general manager of that hotel came from Las Vegas, and apparently he used this EPDM product at a lot of hotels that he worked at in Las Vegas. So this was something he was pushing them towards a direction to look at. This engineer, I quote unquote, he said to me, "I'm tired of dealing with cool decks." And so I was anxious to look at something else. And so that's how they made this decision of going with the EPDM product. They're not going to be installing it until April 20th. But I gave his contact info to President Novello, and feel free and please do reach out to him and discuss him. I told him we would probably be calling him and ask him any questions that you may have.
And so yeah, directors, you can let me know if that's a conversation you'd like to sit in on. I'm more than happy to extend that invitation. I certainly will be following up to give it a full vetting, so thank you for that. Any other questions from directors, ideas, concepts? If something does come up, hopefully this has given us enough food for thought and some potential research to fuel our decision and discussion that will be held at our next workshop meeting. So yes, sorry, Cliff.
Just one other thought I just want to plant in everybody's mind. If this is, if we know the direction that we want to go, and the direction that we want to go is, hey, let's do it next year. We can certainly put the funds in the budget. We don't even need to decide on a product right away, but we could put the funds in the budget to do either, and we can continue to analyze and assess and fully vet, yet still have the funds available. So I just want to put that out there. I know it's a big priority of the board, and I just want to make sure we have the funds available for it when it's time. But also don't want to rush into a decision. I want you to have all the information that you need. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, if I could just add on, just so Russ and Herschel do plan on visiting out in Apache Junction next week, so we'll have more information from them as well on that location.
Thanks. Directors, I would recommend that we put aside the funding to do a repair on Johnson and put that into the budget for our decision. Again, it's all for, we're not deciding to do anything here, but at least to put the funds aside so that we have the ability to make the decision to move forward on a full repair to restore that pool deck, should we choose, that way it's in our budget for decision in April. Any objections or concerns about that? So Cliff, let's, certainly that was my view. Thanks, directors, for quick. Jolene, I'm sorry, Director Piaskowski.
Sorry.
You did have a comment. Sorry, Director Turner, and then we'll go to Director Piaskowski if you have anything to add. This is just an objection to putting it into the budget for our consideration.
The slide number 1 says it's a short-term solution that can be done with current year operating savings. So sure, if the cool decking could be done under the general manager's authority, and the EPDM would need the facts and findings. For just the coping.
That would be for coping only, and that would be if we're not doing anything else on the pool deck. if we decided that we did not want to move, we wanted to wait and see. I believe that's what I heard. Could you repeat that, though?
This option we would recommend if you wanted to test the products and not do the full tear out and replace of RH Johnson next year. We could move forward with these, test those products or solutions, and then decide at a later time.
And that would be, Director Turner, that would be the decision we make in April, right? We can, if we decide as a board that we're not ready to fund for a full replacement, but we are, willing to test one of these options out, we would make that decision and put it to a vote in April. So all I'm asking for from the directors is whether or not we at least put aside the funds in our capital budget and have that discussion as a part of our the funds for a full replacement for Johnson. Director Piaskowski, any concerns with that?
No, we need to do that. As a board, we have to step up to the plate here and get that pool done. So we need to budget that for sure.
So we'll budget it and we'll make the decision in April. Thanks for that. So thank you very much for the additional analysis and for the legwork. Thanks, Stephen and team. I'm sorry. Any questions or comments from our residents here in the room? And Director Forsey told me that there were a couple of comments that came in on the previous topic that we will address. But Director Forsey, did anything come in on the pool deck since we started that?
There's actually, it's about the same person. Let's see here. See, Dale Haynes, well, this was a little bit earlier. Do you want me to find the pool decking first, or how do you
Pool
want?
decking first, and then we'll come back to the to the comments from earlier, if there are any.
Okay. This is Dave DeWitt. Is there any hope of recovering some of the original cost from the vendor product since it has failed repeatedly? And then he continues, I'm hoping the vendor is not currently an approved vendor.
I believe this came up last week as well. Can you repeat that answer, though, so that we can hear it? It's an important one.
Sure.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, so for all intents and purposes, the vendor that we used before is insolvent. So the likelihood of recovering any funding from that is pretty slim. They are currently involved in a lawsuit with another city here in the valley that used them. And so I would imagine that we would be, it'd be very unlikely for us to be able to recover any funds. As much as I would love to say yes, I don't see that happening.
And the funds we spent on RH Johnson were 200, last week you presented 225,000, I believe, right? And all the repairs that were done, in terms of hard cost, anyway, we've spent a lot of time and effort, and our residents have given up access to a key amenity. I get all of that, those costs, but 225,000, did we pay any? We didn't pay anything for the repairs. Those were all covered under warranty, right?
That's correct.
Repairs and
That's correct.
attempted repairs. Yeah. Anything else, Director Forsey, on the decks?
No.
Thank you. And Director Forsey did remind me, we got some comments on the previous, we'll get to those under attendee comments at the end. So with that, we'll close this one, and again, we'll have the capital budget discussion for our pool deck options. We'll include this in our capital project discussions in April for the 26-27 budget. So we'll move on. Thankfully, 505 is not up for debate. It's just a reminder. So today is the 19th, and the governing board online portion of our election has begun. So if you haven't already done so, this is our reminder to please go out and vote. There are 3 questions. The first 2 questions are bylaw changes that the governing board has recommended. And the third question is the star of the show, if you will. It is the governing board director election itself. So please look for in your emails for those online voting. If you or any of your neighbors, your friends have any issues accessing that, if you're not sure how to vote online, or if you're just not able to come to our online vote, our in-person voting, which will be on the 30th at our library. If you're not able to do any of those things but would still like to participate, please give Member Services a call. They'll make sure that one of the members of the committee can get to you and help you if you're not able to come in person and you can't actually get online. So that was just some reminders about the election. And again, I also wanted to remind everyone that following up from the election, which finalizes on the 30th of March, next month will be a big month for us, right? So we have our April capital budget discussions and other discussions. We will also have, as our first reminder, at the end of April, it will be our governing board regular meeting, which takes place on April the 23rd. We will be holding a special organizational meeting that will precede our regular meeting. That special organizational meeting will allow the incoming board that was just elected to join, or those directors who were just elected to join the continuing board directors. They will meet and elect next year's officers, and that takes place on April the 23rd. So lots of voting there going on, but the big thing for those of you listening to is that we want to ensure that you're ready to vote now or as soon as possible. So give Member Services a call if you have any questions or concerns. And good luck to all our candidates, and thank you again for volunteering to serve our community. We'll move on now to agenda topic 6.01. Director Becknell, our treasurer, had to leave for a personal commitment. So on her behalf, I will say the February year-to-date 2026 financials have been reviewed and accepted by the Budget and Finance Committee, and they have been filed. There's no board action that's required as a result of that. So under 7.01, we open it now for any board director comments. We'll start with Director Turner.
No more.
Director Schlemmer.
So I promised Katie I would do this, so forgive me because I know it's been a long meeting, but this goes under the "and now" a word from our sponsor. As you all have heard, there is Sun City West merchandise for sale at the R.H. Johnson Pool, and Katie wanted me to demonstrate, so I am demonstrating my Sun City West socks. And the other foot.
First of all, he's showing off not only the merch, but the fact that he can put his foot on the table. Right. Thank you, Director Schlemmer. Those are cool.
I told her I would.
You have a future in modeling. So, Director Chatton, any questions or comments?
You wanted to anyway, admit it. Nothing further.
Thank you. Director Forsee.
Those look pretty good after 2 weeks solid wearing them.
Director Grant?
No comment.
Nothing to add.
Director Williams?
No comment.
And Director Piaskowski?
Hold on, no comment.
Thank you. So now we can go to General Manager comments.
Thank you, President Novello. So we ran really long last time, so we skipped it. But I do like to, as you all know, periodically point out some of the positive comments that we get about our team members. And as usual, we have a whole list of ones here. And this is just a snapshot of some of the things we receive. And I'd like to point these things out again, mostly just to show that our team is out there every single day, day and night, really, to make sure that you all are able to have a good time. And that's, we're in the business of fun, and we have a great team that really delivers that business. But again, you can see some of the just, very helpful and positive employee there in Member Services, Lisa, and which she is. Just the fact that the folks go out of their way just to, talk about Tom over at Beardsley, never fails to greet, knows the client's helpful to all. Just things that have come in just to show that our team is really out there and really is dedicated to making sure that everyone is taken care of and has a good time. So I think it's just an important reminder to show that we have a lot of positive things that come in, and the importance of continuing to send those in if you would, because I'd love to see them, and it makes my day and it makes me feel good about all the services that we provide and the way that we go about providing those services. So just wanted to share that with everyone.
Thank you for that. And our very own Karen Rockin was
Yes.
included there as well. Karen works for the governing board, and all I can say, having had a front row seat this year to watching Karen handle some of those problems like the one that was highlighted, is it is a skill for everybody in our team that handles all that customer service, but Karen is especially adept at keeping the governing board out of trouble, but also helping all of our owner residents solve some sticky issues. So thanks, Karen. So now we can go to meeting attendee comments. I'd like to start, Director Forsey, if you would please, with the comments that came in from our members on the budget discussion, I believe, and anything else.
This is from Dale Haynes. He says, speed to implement the time value of money are both important. If we delay funding, the momentum and excitement build in the planning process will disappear. And then he goes on to say, I think we can safely say that the upgrades will at least be 6 million. Better to start funding now. And then is there any hope? Oh, no, that was for the pool.
We can do that one too. Did you already?
No, I already did that.
Okay,
So
thank
we're
you.
good.
Any other, and thank you for those. No other comments online, I believe. Oh, please, go ahead. Would you like to respond to that? I think you did explain it all very well. Any other comments, though, from those in the room? Well, then, wonderful. It's long enough as it is. Let me tell you that our next governing board workshop is on April 10th, as I've mentioned a few times already. And our governing board meetings will be a special organizational meeting, as I mentioned, as well as our governing board regular meeting, both taking place on April 23rd here, starting at 9 a.m. in the lecture hall. So seeing no others, I call this meeting adjourned at 12:15. Thank you.